Good evening, folks. Professor Finn here. Welcome to the live stream. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Friday night. And I wanted to start off just by sharing the fact that I've said on this live stream before, if you send me something to wear during my live stream, I will wear it. And I am true to my word. And this is awesome. This is really awesome. Here we go. There it is, right? It's even got little rosy cheeks on it. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So the first thing is, thank you to the unmentioned individual who wished to remain anonymous by sending me an email and saying, hey, I'd like to send you something. You sent it. And I am true to my word, man. So this embarrassing thing will be on my head most of the night if it gets too hot. Because let me tell you what, when I got this thing, I put it on and I'm like, okay, you know, I can see why some people want to wear these things. Whatever. It's somewhat comfortable. It's fuzzy. It's warm. It's like a blanket. And then it was like after 10 minutes, oh my God, this thing retains heat in a horrible fashion. Holy crap. So, yeah, we're going to jump right into this. First thing, really important, I'm going to be pushing a little bit harder for getting the channel out there and whatnot. So you're going to hear a lot more of the like, share, subscribe stuff. So once again, if you take the time, share this with a friend, share this with a classmate, let your professor know what's out there. Hit the comments, give me feedback, let me know what you want, let me know what I can do to improve, all that sort of good stuff. I am very pleased to announce, let me drag the chat over here where I can see it. I am very pleased to announce that I have finished one of the lecture series that is now available on the channel. It is the microbiology lectures. So the entirety of microbiology is now available for free on the channel. You can start with the introduction, work all the way to the end. It is based off of the Pathology and Microbiology for Funeral Science Students by Mullins. It was created, the original lectures were created based off of the first edition. That was the purple edition from 2006. However, I know it was updated by a wonderful peer, good buddy of mine from the American Board of Funeral Service Education, John Fritsch. He has now updated that to a second edition with a tan cover with a red title bar. If you have that, very, very similar. I mean, it doesn't really change that often, just gets modernized with new diseases, new information, stuff like that. And the lectures were modernized where they needed to be. So if things are just a little bit out of sequence, then you're going to notice that as you read through it. But otherwise, the lectures are up and running. The last couple of lectures went up today. I do not see that there's any issues on YouTube. I will be editing post-live stream the watching order, so it goes from 20 all the way through numerically. Right now, the upload kind of messed it up a little bit, and I think 21 and 23 are a little bit out of order. So just FYI, those are available. If I jump over to the screen real quick, let's get back there. Let's go to videos and playlists. You know what? I should probably do this from the channel and not the studio because that is a different view. And share the screen. So from playlists, you will see that pathology and micro was right there. And again, I will be updating so it plays sequentially like it's supposed to and it makes sense. And there we go. Let's get that closed because I don't like staring at myself like ugly. All right. Other thing I want to do is I am happy to announce that I'm starting to get, I have all the memes set up in OBS Studio, which is the software I use to stream and record videos and do stuff like that. So I didn't realize how many of these foolish things I downloaded. Those of you who are my students out there, you know I love putting memes in my lectures and dumb videos and dumb animated GIFs, all that sort of stuff. So the problem is I've only got one of those little itty-bitty stream decks that have something like 12 or 15 buttons. And dude, I got like close to 50 little meme sequences, so I'm going to have to go out this weekend and buy a whole nother, much larger stream deck just so I have all my memes at my fingertips because, man, I'm telling you, I am a happy, happy, happy camper right now having all these things up. Before we dive into... Let's see. I think this is the one. There we go. Before we dive into the trite stuff, so to speak, which is articles on the internet and talk about things like that, going forward, if you send me something, you send me questions via email, askbigbadfin@gmail.com. I will start the live stream out with those, and then we will dive into the stuff that's on the internet that you can see and, prompt for conversation. So the first one comes from... my new bestie, so to speak, over in New Zealand, Laura, and she asks, "Hey, Professor Finn, do you have any tips on learning embalming chemicals? You can start by tasting them. That's a great way to go. Don't do it, okay? Don't do it. We have Dodge, Genelin, Champion, since some Eccles. I have the products catalog by finding it hard to know what's best and finding its trial and error and learning from that, but was wondering if there are any ways of learning what works best without trial and error." So the short answer to that first paragraph here is no. There's no real way without trial and error because everything that you will hear from others is going to be hearsay. Now, I've never used Genelin or Champion. And the reason why I don't know if even Genelin is available in the United States. That's a completely new manufacturer I'm aware of. And the reason why I haven't used Champion is because different states allow mortuary schools to do things differently. So, for instance, here in Texas, and I think all of my schools are registered with their respective states as embalming facilities, central preps, because we have embalming rooms on campus. In the state of Florida, the different schools handle it differently. So, for instance, my alma mater, St. Petersburg College, shout out to Professor Gary Brown, and shout out and God bless to my other former professor, Kevin Davis. This is his final semester teaching. I think he might actually already be retired by now, so I hope he enjoys his retirement. They're registered as an embalming facility because they allow others to come in and use their embalming room. They allow filming in there, so they want to be protected by the state. My good friend Howard Beckham, the program director up at Florida State College at Jacksonville, I can't remember if he has a facility license or not. I just don't remember. And then at Miami-Dade, we didn't have a facility license down there. It's a strictly academic lab. We don't let anyone else come in and do embalming. We don't do embalming for members of the public. It is strictly academic in function. So the state basically gives us an exception, subject to change in a moment's notice because that's the way government works. So because we didn't have a license in Miami, Champion wouldn't sell the chemical to us because they have to have a facility number. That's their own internal policy. And hey, man, in the state of Florida, if you get a facility number, that means you are inspected annually. You have to keep records of all the bodies you embalm in there. It's not like we don't keep records of all the bodies embalmed. But that means I have to fill out a form every month and send it over to the state. And the answer is, nah, that's a bit too much hassle just for teaching students and not making any profit off of it. Because that's the other issue, is you don't get it for free because you're a school. You have to pay for that license. So unfortunately, we couldn't get any Champion. But I hear Champion is a good chemical, has a wonderful reputation. Back in the day, the Champion electric aspirators, I hear those things were called chest crackers because they would just absolutely induce such a vacuum it would break bones, like really hardcore stuff. And the people that have those old Champion aspirators, they hold on to them forever. Those things are just meant to outlive humanity and cockroaches, and probably very easily fixed, and intended to be maintained and updated with new parts and whatnot, unlike modern stuff, which is basically throwaway. So, having used Dodge, having used some Eccles, I'm telling you that's the best way to do it. I grew up in the funeral home, so to speak, working for Mr. Reese, and he was a Dodge guy. That's all the stuff he had in his shelves. My rep there in South Florida, another great guy by the name of Jay Rhodes. He's forgotten more about embalming than I'm ever going to learn. Like, he's top notch. He's done like literally at least 10,000 bodies, starting to build up towards the 20 mark somewhere. He's been embalming forever. Comes from a prestigious line of funeral directors. Well, never got to experience Pierce, and everyone basically said Pierce was crap. So it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do as an intern? What am I going to do as an apprentice? Pierce is crap because, everyone tells me Pierce is crap and it's cheap. So not only, is it crap, it's cheap crap, which is the only reason why people use it. So then I get to Miami, and I have both chemicals on the shelves. I have Dodge Chemical, I have Pierce Chemical. And when you first get into funeral service education, you start teaching, you really have two paths you can decide on doing. You can either continue with your normal bias and, just go that route, or you can, what I'm going to say is you do your job and you play with everything that you have access to, and you experience what these other chemicals are, and you form your own opinion. So, I was able to play with a little bit of Frigid, I played with some Eccles, I played with some Esco, I played with Dodge, I played with Pierce, and I made my own opinions on all of these. And the other benefit is I could do trial and error, carte blanche, because of the fact that it's an academic environment. Now, can you do this in the funeral home for profit? And yes, absolutely, it's going to increase some liability, 100%. But if you're going to do some trial and error, you have to approach it with a healthy dose of common sense, and that's what I want to get at here. That you shouldn't just drop your existing manufacturer that you use, whoever you use. What you should do is you should buy a couple of cases of some chemicals you want to try, start embalming with them, like do a case with it, because if the stuff doesn't do what you want, well, If you were paying attention in mortuary school, the one thing they tell you 100% of the time is if the embalming doesn't go the way you want it to go, you go back and you re-inject it. And that's the point that you would probably want to use. I don't know, the chemical you're comfortable with and you know what it does. You know, that's why everyone keeps Purple Jesus on the shelf. Good old fashioned Intrafine with Dynachrome or Intrafine old time color and a gallon of dye or something. So you would go in and correct it if something is going south. And then you would take your notes, because most people keep an embalming journal, especially if you want to play with other chemicals, and notate, hey, how does this stuff work compared to what I'm used to using? What type of color do I get? Do I have to add extra dye? Do I have to add more bottles? And one thing I'll tell you is if you're not getting the color you want when you're injecting, add more preservative. Don't just add more dye. Dye adds nothing to the preservative equation. It adds color. But if you add more preservative, especially if you're using a preservative that's supposed to have active dyes in there, chances are pretty good. Just start adding quarter bottle, half a bottle, third a bottle, whatever it is, until you see you're getting the color that you want without adding extra dye. And you'll probably find that your bodies go a little bit extra because of the fact that you're adding that extra preservative, because you're probably at the preferred dilution for it. So don't be afraid to buy a case or two of something new and try it. Absolutely ask your peers, okay? Absolutely ask your peers. What are you using? Why are you using it? What have you noticed? Why did you switch? Those sort of things. Now, don't be surprised if people say, well, we switched because we got a better exclusive deal with chemical company B, and they're giving us a much better discount. So let's be honest. If it affects the bottom line as a business owner, you might make some concessions, okay? But you also have to remember, having your insurer raise premiums because you had to sign off because you're using an inferior chemical, that's something that you have to keep in mind here. So trial and error most certainly is the best way to figure out what works and what doesn't. And you may find that some things work better in certain circumstances because you'll reach for certain things. I found out, me personally, that because I basically played nonstop with Dodge and Pierce, I found that the color for Pierce activates much more quickly than Dodge does. And I've said it on this channel, I say it in my lectures. If I have a body that comes in at 8 in the morning and I need it viewed at 4 p.m., I am telling you in no uncertain terms, I'm reaching for some bottles of Pierce, lickety split, that's what I'm using, because it's going to give me great color really quick. And if I know what Pierce chemicals work for whatever instances, I should not have a problem with my long-term preservation, recognizing there will probably be changes in color as things progress. Now, if I'm picking up at 8 a.m. and I am viewing 2 or 3 days later, I am telling you in no uncertain terms, I'm probably going to reach for a Dodge chemical. I find it preserves a little bit longer, but it takes longer for the color to hit and get to where I want it. So that's kind of the judgment that I have to make doing that. So the first thing is get a description of the chemicals you want to use from the chemical manufacturer that produces it. Get their catalog, read it, and go, okay, you know what? I want to try this. Now, unfortunately, these are regulated chemicals. And here in the United States, they can only be shipped via ground. And that is typically flat shipping at, $500 per pallet. So you are probably going to drop some cash if you are going to pick up a bunch of different chemicals to try out. Will every funeral home on earth do that? Probably not. Probably, less than 10% of all funeral homes will give you the benefit of playing with other chemicals. Here are some ways you can get around that. I know in New Zealand, it's a much different training environment than the United States. It is vastly different. I would go back to mortuary school and say, hey, y'all ever get some of this stuff? I'd like to try a couple of bottles. Can I trade you a case of Dodge for a case of Eccles or whatever it is so I can go play with it? Now, don't know if your mortuary science department would allow something like that, okay? But I'm telling you, if I had an alumnus coming in, or I had a business owner that employs some of my current students or graduates, I'm absolutely going to make that deal. Unless they're coming in and just trying to trade me like a $40 case of water corrective for a $120 case of high index fluid, we can figure something out. unless it's something like that, because then I'm just getting hosed, I'm losing money, and I can't do like for like. So that would be something I would have to consider. But I want people to explore and figure things out. And above all else, as a program director, former program director, I want people graduating from my schools that can walk into a funeral home and use the chemicals that are there. And if they change suppliers, I want to make sure they've had some experience working with another chemical so that they are more useful to the employer. It increases their employability and their retention because they're more valuable. So there are good reasons why employers should maybe try to figure some of these things out and get some extra chemicals to play with and see how they work. You don't go to, if you're a painter, unless you only deal in monochromatic colors, you have a spectrum of things to play with. Well, don't be afraid to mix it up now and then and, buy a couple of cases of something extra, even from your regular supplier, just to see how that all rolls out. I'm so scared. The rest of that says, I'm so scared of turning anything into the Hulk. Well, the first thing is you don't really have an option to not turn them into the Hulk if the situation's that bad, okay? This is one of the uncomfortable truths, and people can agree to disagree with me. If you are really dealing with a heavily jaundiced individual, chances are you're going to light them up and turn them green anyways. There's no way around that, because the most important part of the preservation task is preservation. And if you're trying to make sure you don't get that green color because, you're worried about it turning green, well, choose your poison. The body's either going to rapidly decompose on you because it's already full of waste and garbage, and the microorganisms are just waiting for an excuse to proliferate and accelerate decomposition, or nuke the body, turn it green, and use cosmetic. Ultimately, you want the body preserved because good, dry, preserved tissue is the basis for all restorative art. End of story. And if you're doing your job well, you will know the moment that body walks in and it is bright and deep yellow that you need to have a conversation with the family and set some realistic expectations. Okay? The most important thing is you set realistic expectations. Families can sue you to sue you. Okay? You are not immune from lawsuits just because you did something right. You're still going to have to defend your actions, whether you did everything right or some things wrong or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, it is easier to defend if you're doing smart things. And if you focus on the preservation, knowing that there's just no way this body is not going to be yellow, you're going to have to use cosmetic anyways, whether it's yellow or whether it's green. At least it's not going to decompose if it's green and you've done the job right. Away you go. There are going to be some people out there that say, oh no, you can get those bodies back to a reasonable color by embalming with milk. Hey, you know what? I really don't know what to tell you, because I don't think that is the case at all. Granted, I have never embalmed with milk. Nor could you ever get me to embalm with milk, because milk has proteins that are going to coagulate when you inject it with when you inject formaldehyde on top of it. And above all else, it has acids, which would create an acidic environment, which are not ideal for the preservatives that we use. So you're kind of like double whammying things. And I don't know why the dogs are having a party out there in the living room, but we're just going to let them murder each other, and that's that. All I can tell you, talk with your peers, talk with others. Read with very careful eyes if you start asking questions in online forums, because everyone has an opinion and the stuff they don't use is crap and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, if these chemicals are on the market, okay, generally speaking, if these chemicals are on the market, they're going to do the job they're supposed to do. Otherwise, the company would go out of business. Like flat up, it would go out of business. No ifs, ands, or buts. So probably not the answer you're looking for, Laura, but it's the answer I got. It's, I think, the wisest answer I can possibly give. If you want to talk more about specific chemicals for specific purposes, I'm happy to do that. Probably going to end up reaching out to some of the chemical manufacturers. I mean, obviously I have inroads with Pierce because Pierce is owned by the Wilbert Group, and I know people at the Wilbert Group very, very well. Know people from Dodge also very, very well. I know a lot of their reps now from the different conventions and state conventions and stuff like that. Um, I can get stuff and we can talk about, what chemicals do what and maybe what are comparables between different catalogs. But I got to admit, I'm not in a prep room very frequently at all anymore. So, unfortunately, that's just not something I do with the current role that I have. So I got this from Rachel earlier today, um, and these questions are pretty good. Okay, these are pretty good, and gonna be a pretty hard topic. So real quick, I just forgot that I lost the chat, which is really weird because I'm like, dude, who's here? Who's talking? Whatever. Give me just a second to kind of pull that up. There we go. Uh, oh, Tiff, how you doing? We're going to talk about your article tonight. I don't think I did that on the last live stream, and I know I did a shout out on Facebook. So, folks, we have a strong up and comer who recently got published by our friend over at the Funeral Director Daily. So we'll be looking at her article today, and I'm proud to say she's one of my former students, one of my good grads, and hey, man, I hope you're on that rocket riding your career straight up at this point because you're top notch, man. Ella, thank you for enhancing my education over the past few years. I passed both of my national boards on the first try. Yeah, success story. And the main factors that help me were my motivation, SPC, and your online content. Hey, man, I don't know what they call their teams anymore. It used to be the Trojans, so go Trojans. But congratulations. Again, wonderful, wonderful program there. I know different people have different experiences. I had a good time at that program, and I had a wonderful time with the professors, and I'm just absolutely proud to call those professors my friends and my peers now. So good for you. Congratulations. So let's talk about some questions that Rachel sent me. First question, how do I find employment in Arkansas due to cultural differences in the South versus where I am from northern Midwest? So where you find employment is the same place as just about anyone finds employment. Start with the classified boards with state organizations, see who's hiring. There is no magic to finding the right employer. And I will absolutely die on the hill of you quit bosses, not jobs. Excuse me. Okay? I can love my job. I can absolutely love my job, but if a boss makes my life miserable, man, I don't care how much I love the job, how much I love the work, how fulfilling the work is to me. If the boss is simply going to drive me nuts, I gotta go, bro. Like, that's all there is to it. And unfortunately, when you are in the Midwest, you're going to run in a lot of traditional areas. Now, don't think that the Midwest has an exclusive on sexism, okay? Period. Don't assume that for a second. There are plenty of places in very progressive areas of the United States that have these holdout businesses that are absolutely going to be complete trash when they look at hiring women. And that is very unfortunate, okay? Because the National Funeral Directors Association has the statistics that show that this is not a male-dominated business anymore, okay? Women are pouring into this business. They're going to be the managers and the owners of the future. So let's go ahead and, bring yourself into the modern panorama of practice. I had a conversation today with some educational leaders about some of these challenges in these different markets. And hey, man, if you don't want to evolve your business, don't know what to tell you. Writing's on the wall, okay? Women are very, very capable in funeral service. Absolutely can, they can transfer bodies safely. And when they say, a woman can't do a removal. Woman can, okay? Let's be very clear. A woman can. But if you expect a 120-pound woman to transfer a 415-pound decedent, I don't know why you would expect a 120-pound male to try to do the same without getting injured. Okay? Having transferred 415 pounds by myself back in the day when, I wasn't a fat slug, that was challenging. And I'm 6 foot. I'm a big dude. And back then I was probably in like the mid to high twos, like 250 to 270. So transferring that person was a challenge for me at that time, and I relatively would lift weights and do whatever and keep a little bit in shape. If I tried doing that now, I'd probably die. I'd drop the body on me and I would just give up the ghost and say, the hell with this. Like, that's not for me. I wouldn't be able to do something like that. I feel that I would absolutely hurt myself. And because of lifting heavy objects in funeral service, I have to be very sensitive about my back and things that I do. So I would say if you are having trouble, the first thing is you don't get to have the luxury of saying, I want private versus corporate. I would probably say focus on corporate because corporate will have more opportunities, especially in more traditional markets, and will be less likely to pigeonhole you. That being said, you may find a very progressive independent firm that will absolutely be happy to have you and utilize you towards your strengths. I do not see why people will not hire women as directors. I don't understand that at all. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Especially when I see that there are people out there that are doing things that are all over the front page of the director, Memento Mori, and they're women. Like, what more of a sign do people need to figure it out? I'm all for taking the shovel to the back of the head to get them to do something. Hey, if I can't win you with sugar, I'll win you with the stick because I'll just knock you unconscious, drag you out somewhere, tie you to a tree, and we'll forget you existed. But I just don't get that. How do I find acceptance amongst an all-male entrenched Southern culture? I had a job where the female CEO of the company was requesting me to work on specific clients, all the children, infants, and veterans. I was not accepted in the Southern mortuary culture as a woman by male coworkers, and no other female morticians at the facility. Which is interesting that there's a female CEO and they allowed that to happen. Like that's a bit ridiculous to me. So the first thing, again, probably not the answer you want, but it's the answer I got to give you, is if you are looking acceptance from your coworkers, don't. Okay, don't. You don't need acceptance from coworkers. You need satisfied clients. And if you're being given children, infants, and veterans, be the best at embalming children, infants, and veterans. I am telling you that if you are good at embalming infants and children, which is a skill set, sadly, that I think most embalmers lack because they don't do it very frequently, and then when they do, they clearly did not pay attention in their embalming classes as to how to handle those type of cases. That leads to tremendous amounts of employee satisfaction. And most importantly, bank your cash, start your own business. Period. How do you gain acceptance? By being your own boss. That's the truth of the matter. If you can't be a good employee, then by all means, try to be a good boss. Get a firm started, start getting calls, and go from there. And if you've done a lot of children and infants and people know that you're the one that did it and you're the one that cared for them, chances are pretty good you already got some inroads going on. I can tell you that I don't think it's going to be limited just to women. I think it's also going to be limited to gay individuals, transsexuals. I think these people in any one of these traditional environments are going to have trouble. That's something else that's uncomfortable for a lot of individuals. And I don't understand why. I don't understand what a person's sexual orientation has to do with their ability to be good funeral directors. I don't understand that at all. In fact, I would probably say that gay men probably have a much greater tendency to do the job well and better because they are more in focused with that emotional side. Not to stereotype someone or anything like that, but that is an advantage that they have. So I just don't understand it. And certainly some of the most influential people in my life and some of my dearest friends that I considered family were gay. And I have students that are trans. I have peers. I don't want to say I have coworkers. They're not coworkers, but they are peers in the American board who are in relationships or are trans themselves. And it's like, how are these people not capable or competent? I don't understand that. I can understand that clients might be hesitant, and that has an issue because we have to address the elephant in the room. Okay, we don't act in a vacuum. at all. And you don't have to like it that, you have to cover the tats or take out the piercings, or you have to hide your authentic self. Nothing says it has to be fair. You have to accept that that's the industry in some markets. And if you don't want to be in that market, then you have to find the market that you're looking for, which means you have to return to Pacific Northwest or find an area in the state that is accepting of that. Like, I can tell you that if you come to Dallas, probably find pretty good employment. And if you were gay, hey man, San Antonio's the place to be. Like, end of story. San Antonio is a very progressive city in Texas. That is the unfortunate truth of the matter. You are in the environment where you are, and you have to kind of play by the rules of that environment. And if you're waiting for it to progress from 1960 to 2025 overnight, that's an unrealistic expectation. And that's unfortunate. But that's the situation. How do you think I feel as a person who's basing his life in education, where I have students coming from diverse backgrounds, of different orientations, that come to school and they're like, well, what do I do? It's the same conversation I just had with you. You have to understand that's the environment you in. And it's unfortunate, but that's the environment that we're in. And as time progresses, do your own firm, do your own thing. And when you're your own boss, the only person that needs to accept you is you. Okay, the person that stares back at the mirror. My position right now as a chief executive officer and a president, I can tell you that one thing that virtually everyone does well is armchair quarterback. Any decision I make is going to be scrutinized tremendously by the people around me. And people who don't even have a say, that aren't even in my business, are probably going to be scrutinizing things that I do, whether it's right, whether it's wrong. If I am going to seek acceptance and be accepted, it's the wrong metric. The only metric I have to look at is it improving the health of my organization? Are my students learning better? Are they being employed? And if those things are happening and my business is having revenues over expenses, I am doing something right and the rest is noise. If my board of directors comes to me and has a conversation with me about what they want for the organization, the board of directors are my boss. And I will listen to them, and I will obey them, and I will do the mandates that they want, because they are the board of directors. And when I have to go and engage my direct reports, I have to tell them, where we're going. I have to make that decision. I have to take responsibility for it. And I'm not going to try to change the world all at once. I know that changing society is a slow process. When we travel on airplanes these days, we walk up to an x-ray machine. We have to walk through, take our shoes off, we get wanded, we do all these things. When I grew up, there was none of that when I was a kid. None of that. Okay? It changed immediately because of an immediate necessity: health, safety, and security. One jackass had explosive in his shoes, and it changed how we fly across the world immediately, rapidly, etc. We are not dealing with that same type of a situation where it's health or safety or something like that. We're talking about a social culture, social norms, where there is very little way to evoke that type of a change or a response. And that's just the truth. So again, probably not the response you want, but it's the response I'm going to get or give you. And all I can tell you is keep the faith. If your means permit, look at other markets. Maybe start your own business. And with any luck, if you start your own business and you do a good job, I'll tell you right now, people will come because you care. And if it's a traditional market, where it's just roll them in, roll them out, take the money, see what type of car they drove in, and swap some signs on the caskets real quick, so that you can get a little extra buck. Eventually, that's going to burn itself out. The best funeral homes in the nation are progressive funeral homes that employ a variety of professionals from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different sexual orientations, etc. And they recognize that caring for families has very little bearing on some of these other factors. Being a younger woman too, and that's dude. Ageism is a thing, right? Ageism is a thing for sure. I am rapidly approaching the age. I mean, it shows I'm rapidly approaching the age where age is going to affect me. Does someone hire me in my 50s? Does someone hire someone in their 20s? If we are equally competent, equally good, interview equally well, where are we at from a perspective in our careers? If I'm looking for someone that's going to be a go-getter and long-term for my business, probably want to hire the young person. If I hire the old guy's only going to be around 10, 15 years, then they're going to retire. They're probably not going to be interested in taking my business. There's an article we're going to look at where it's anticipated that 50% of all funeral homes in the United States will change ownership in some way, shape, or form in the next 2 decades. So what type of legacy planning do these funeral homes have going forward? Very important. Very, very important to look at those things. Those are things that we just deal with. Let's go ahead and get this shared. Let's go boom. Here we go. So I saw this and figured, heck, man, we would roll through this. Fun fact: here in the fall, Wilbert EDU is going to have some chucklehead that right now is wearing some fuzzy bunny ears here, whatever this is, giving a workshop. So if you do not know about Wilbert EDU, probably want to go ahead, click join the mailing list, and they offer some wonderful e-learning, usually that will satisfy continuing education credits in your area. So very important. Wilbert EDU does go the extra effort, the extra mile to make sure that their stuff is certified for continuing education credit. And you don't have to go anywhere. Just click on it, let it open, and then talk. When you are in a competitive business, you need to acquire customers and find a way to make sure that customers are committed to you. Yes, true. Brand loyalty is what we call that. Many times acquiring the customer might be the easy part. It usually is. But making sure the customer stays committed to you and loyal to your brand can be difficult over time. Oh, absolutely. Folks, I'm telling you, if you go to the NFDA conventions or ICCFA conventions, NFDMA convention, NFDMA is coming up here very shortly in New Jersey. Those are the things we talk about there. Lots of people know, hey, you got them in the door, but how do you keep them? How do you get them brand loyal? Very important. Potential customers whom funeral homes have acquired simply by being that customer's choice for future business can be extremely susceptible to leaving that commitment to your firm between the time they decide to use your firm and when they may actually need your services. They might see a bad review, hear a negative comment, or simply be seated at a funeral you're conducting in a seat they prefer not to sit in. Potential clientele can be funny that way. Yep. In my view, the potential client is very susceptible to changing death care options until they have some type of commitment on their part to your firm. Probably the best form of commitment for retention is a funded pre-arrangement. Yeah? Until you do something silly and stupid, and then you find out that, oh, I can transfer that pre-arrangement. Bye-bye. That's why funeral homes go to such a great effort to put them in place. They are a large positive predictor of turning customers by choice into committed customers. Not wrong. Again, not wrong. But you also have to understand that even though they've signed that contract, if you piss them off in some way, shape, or form, they will find ways to get out and get that prearrangement transferred. Excellent example of this. Had a beautiful, beautiful cemetery in the market that I worked in, and they probably this family I was working with probably had about $40,000 worth of cemetery property, and they had indicated that maybe they want to change the disposition from burial to cremation or whatever. And basically, the funeral home slash cemetery told them that's just tough crap. We're not going to refund any of your merchandise. We're not going to work for you. We're not going to work with you. You can go ahead and choose cremation, but either way, you need to figure out what you want to do with this $15,000 casket. So then they came to us and, trying to explore their options. I advised them best as I could, how, what they could do or whatever. And they came to me and said, well, we got this casket. What can we do? Well, let me ask my owner, let me figure something out for you. So we kind of did a like for like, as best as we could. And what we did is we ended up taking the very expensive stainless steel premium casket they had, getting them a cremation casket, like a nice cherry or something. I think it was cherry. The casket I was receiving was more expensive than the casket I was selling them, right? So I can get this casket. I can get them their a cremation container essentially. And at the place that I worked at, our urns were included in the cost of the packages you would provide, so they could just pick an urn and it would be right there. So we allowed them to trade their casket they had for a casket with us. And then what do you think I did? Right around. I waited till I had a family that I could sell that casket to, and I sold that casket to them. And they got stuck with the cemetery property. But I can tell you going forward, do you really think that that family or anyone in there is going to have anything positive to say about the experience they had at the other firm? No. Okay? No chance of that. I became the hero. And I did more members of that person's family that did not have pre-arrangements, because now they're kind of upset and warned off of pre-arrangements, right? Because I get a pre-arrangement and I get stuck. Had to do some education. That's not necessarily the case. Okay, you can get a pre-arrangement and you can transfer that to maybe another funeral home. Now you might be stuck with the property, but you might be able to work in other ways. But there are other ways to strengthen that commitment for people who have your firm as number one in their mind but are not ready or able to financially prearrange. In politics, when the candidates are going through the primary election season, you will see them all announce websites to go to where you can make a donation, and the amount doesn't matter. Candidates know that once they have a financial commitment from a voter, even if it's only $5, they have a committed supporter. And committed supporters become brand advocates, so there is a great deal of value in having them. Again, not wrong. One of my little things that I do now, and this is a bad habit I got to shake, is I like going on Kickstarter and looking at things I want to back. Like what's cool, what's coming out, and whatnot. Over the last couple of months, an old bad habit of mine in the form of comic books and graphic novels has kind of weaseled back into me. And one thing I like about Kickstarter is have some people doing some pretty unique and pretty cool things, and they offer some pretty cool options. So it just so happens that, I've backed a couple of these things that I've seen on there. And is that going to make me a brand advocate for the products I'm buying for those individuals? Kind of, sort of. When I get it, I'll see if I like it or whatnot. Is it going to make me think of Kickstarter for anything going forward? Nah, probably not. Like, I don't really care. It's Kickstarter or whoever. But they're not wrong. Like, I'll be a brand advocate for something I bought there. And if they don't provide what they say, right, if I get burned, well, then I'm pretty much not just going to be pissed at the person, be pissed at Kickstarter for allowing it to happen. Which, for the record, I don't back things that are like $500, $600, $700, $1,000. No, maybe I'm backing something that's between 40, maybe 120 on the high cap. And if I do one of those every 3 months, once a quarter, that's a bit rich for me. So not very frequently. But check out some of the cool stuff on Kickstarter. Death care and especially direct cremation companies have a plethora of online operators where one can register their future wishes. Most of these websites will take and store that information for a future at-need death at no cost to the consumer. Duh, we were doing that on paper. Someone wants to come in and just put something on paper and write things down. Smartest thing on earth, man. Just get it written down, give them a copy of it, and now they have something that they can use. All the information is taken. I tried to get my dad to do that for years with just telling me names and dates and stuff like that I would be able to use for legal aspects. And man, I'm glad I did it, because if I hadn't, I would have been absolutely wrecked trying to find some of that information. My question for you to ponder this weekend is, like in politics, would a minimum charge of $10 with the online arrangement result in a stronger commitment from the potential customer and a greater likelihood that they will become a brand ambassador and psychologically committed to your firm than simply allowing them to sign up for no cost? Well, that's interesting, right? They walk in, they pay basically a $10 cover. It obligates them. They get something out of it, and, away we go. I'm taking this off. I love it. It's great, but my God, is this dang thing hot. Holy crap. Literally, I think my head just went down like 5 degrees just by taking it off. In the pre-internet days of America's cremation preference build-up, 75 to 2000, woohoo, 1975. There are some great success stories of firms that did just that by allowing consumers to be invested or committed to a cremation provider for a $25 lifetime fee. The old crappy membership. In many cases, these consumers were told the initial $25 fee would be taken off the price at the time of cremation. Some even allowed a 50 credit at need for the $25 lifetime fee. I got to be honest. I have never understood that. Come into the store, spend $500, and we'll take $50 off.
Who does that?
Like, seriously, it just drives me nuts, man. It just drives me nuts. I just don't understand it. Funeral Director Daily, what does Tom have to say about this? In discussion with firms who did this type of marketing in the past, I found it amazing how consumers became incredible brand ambassadors for a cremation over traditional burial once they had the psychological commitment. And now I wonder if the populace will once again make a committed move, this time embracing and advocating for direct cremation with no services or do-it-yourself services rather than cremation with services as the most popular form of human disposition services. Hey, I'll tell you one way to beef that up for free from Professor Finn's all-you-can-eat bar here. They come in, they pay their $10 or $25 or whatever, and you give them a keychain or something with a QR code that in the event something happens, scan this and talk to someone who can access the information. Okay? You're welcome. There you go. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But that'd be something cool. So those of you that are listening right now, The Mortician, any of y'all watch that? I've not watched it. People have been bugging me to watch it. I haven't watched it. Tiff writes in the chat, diversity is powerful, especially in an industry which thrives on personalization mixed with rich culture and traditional values. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I just don't get it when people... I view all employment as a meritocracy, okay? If there is anything that interferes with the meritocracy, it's probably not something that you needed to consider. In a meritocracy, the best people with the most competence and the best skills fit the role. I am lucky, okay? I am very lucky at Pierce Mortuary Colleges Incorporated. At PMC, I have a relatively diverse group of administrative executives. And I am very grateful for that. Is it something I go hunting for? Can't say that I do. But I do try to hunt for the best talent with the best skill sets that will fit and work with the team that I have. I want to make sure every portion of the team works. So if something doesn't work, I can't have it there. If something is dragging. So for instance, with Rachel's questions. If I'm in the Midwest, if I'm in the Pacific Northwest, if I am in Mexico, if I am in Trinidad and Tobago, that doesn't matter to me as an employer. Who are the best people that I have? Okay? Who are the best people that I have that do the best job? Those are the people I'm going to hire. That being said, I do recognize that we have to be very, very, very sensitive to the communities that we serve and what some of their expectations are, even if, even if it might go against our own personal things. But fact of the matter is, an owner sticking up for their person goes a long way, to getting people accepted. If they're not willing to do that, that's kind of a problem. That's just my take on it. I've seen most of The Mortician, felt so many emotions. I'll check it out eventually. It's also, I've never seen an episode of 6 Feet Under. And I think I've seen 2 or 3 episodes of Family Plots, which was, I think, something on the Learning Channel. It was more of a reality show than it was like a television drama. And that's the reason why I watched it, was because it was like, okay, this isn't some scripted crap. This is the garbage that I deal with at the funeral home. This is me on the other side of the country. It was a series that I think it was Paue Bernardo, Funeral Services in California, I think was the name of it. Focused on, dad, his daughter, the manager, all that sort of stuff. I can tell you that I know of the story of The Mortician. I'm familiar with the events. Was watching a video on YouTube not too far back of the current owners of the building that are renovating it and trying to, bring it back to some former glory. Good luck for doing that, because, buildings will typically hold, whatever negative energy that has been there because people are stupid. But hey, might work out. It's a pretty building, I'll give it that. The 3-part documentary series, which chronicles the inhumane practices at a funeral home in Southern California, debuted on June 1st. Since then, the show has tailored more than 2.6 million cross-platform viewers in the United States per the network. It is now the most watched HBO documentary series in over 5 years. Well, that's pretty good. I'm still watching true crime crap on Netflix. Here's another quote from the Deadline article featuring an exclusive interview with David Sconce, newly released from prison. The series examines the lucrative and ubiquitous multi-billion-dollar mortuary industry and illuminates what can happen behind closed doors away from public scrutiny. Bro, this is 2025. Morticians are doing that crap right in front of people these days. Where you been? With emotional interviews with families of the victims of the Lamb Funeral Home and revelations from former employees, The Mortician unravels a dark, troubling story that involved mass cremations and stealing from the dead in a multitude of macabre ways. Aw, look at all the fancy words. Someone used AI. Funeral Director Daily Take. I watched all 3 parts of the series and would argue that this type of publicity for the death care profession is not good. Yep, I'm with Tom on that. Here's the problem, right? It gets people watching, 2.6 million people watching, and gets them pissed at their funeral providers. Look at these scummy people, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I can't say I disagree with Mr. Anderson here. It struck me in 2 separate ways. First of all, I thought of some of my childhood lessons from my parents, teachers, and other mentors about doing things the right way. It is always much harder to do it wrong than it is to do it right, 100%. It appeared to me that once members of the Greater Lamb family from the funeral home took shortcuts, it was much easier to take bigger shortcuts and deprive client families of sacred trust that they put in the funeral home. Yeah, but that is not that's not just in funeral service, okay? There are plenty of examples in every industry of people cutting corners, doing things wrong, trying to save a buck, usually trying to save a buck, that puts people at inherent harm. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The problem is those other people aren't funeral directors that deal with dead bodies of loved ones. So when we do it, rightfully so, it's much, much worse of an impact. The lesson is take the time to always do things right, because once you don't, it's simply easier and easier to simply do things easy, not necessarily correct. Yep, absolutely. Do it right. Don't do it easy. The other week I was traveling. I went to the Virginia Funeral Directors Association, and they were kind enough to host me for giving a speech there. And I visited our campus in Georgia, Gupton Jones College of Funeral Service. Shout out to them. Wonderful group of first year people that I sat there and was able to talk to for like 2 hours. Like, it really triggered me because I forgot how much I missed being in front of students, talking about subject matter, engaging with them, getting them on the way. That's like the worst thing about my job is I am not student facing, and I just don't have a lot of time to do those sort of things because of the nature of what my job is. And it turned out that there was a student in there that was formerly a professional diver. And I happen to be scuba certified myself, scuba certified and nitrox certified. And he said something I hadn't heard in years. Um, slow, what was it? Slow is, oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember it. It's like slow is easy and easy is smooth, or something like that. And in diving, that's very important that you do it right and you don't panic. And when you do it right and you do it slow, things happen. You don't take shortcuts because that's when bad things happen, especially when you're carrying like a 1200 psi grenade on your back. The second lesson I took from watching the series was if you know something is wrong, stop it because continuing to do the improper procedure will just spin out of control and be harder to stop in the future. One thing that I absolutely have to do in the job that I'm in is when a problem comes up, it has to be addressed. Okay, that's one little bit of information I'll give you if you want to be a business owner, if you want to be the head honcho of something, or you are a manager. When something pops in, you have to take immediate action onto it. You can't hope it's going to go away. You can't just sit there and hope it's not going to be addressed. It's one of the greatest criticisms that some of my direct reports, or people at least that are subordinate to me, have, is they feel that, well, I'm not doing something quick enough. I'm doing something, but maybe not quick enough for their preference. And again, there might be reasons for that. Okay, I have found that in the position I'm in that the world is not black and white, man, and you are constantly pushing between varying shades of grays, and everything is interconnected in ways that just boggles your mind. So things have to be done methodically, carefully, and precisely, from my point of view. And sometimes that infuriates people. The Lambscon's family had more than one person found guilty in their operation of the funeral home crematory, so a jury found them culpable. It was truly a bad episode of death care for the greater Los Angeles area, and as seen in the documentary, there are still people suffering from the dishonesty of that mortuary 45 years later. And absolutely, the industry suffered for it, just like, what was it, Tri-County over in Georgia. We've suffered for that since the 1980s. I reached out to a colleague of whom I knew was in the business of Los Angeles in the Lamb Funeral Home time period. He told me that his staff was aware of the great volume of cremations that the Lamb Funeral Home was doing at a low, low price of $55 per cremation. Now, mind you, think of the time frame this is in. Seems like that's super cheap by modern standards, because it is. Back then, 55 is low cost, but not too terribly crazy. I can tell you that I saw a bill for a funeral that was prearranged at the funeral home I worked at from 1971 or 1972. And the cremation was $195 for everything. 25 of that was a clergy honorarium. So 55 would be cheap, but not ridiculously cheap. Still, it's a bit of a low-cost trigger. Also, we're talking about Florida, not California, because people are like, oh, I have a low-cost cremation provider here in California. So what is it, like $19.95 for a direct cremation? I can tell you I can get it for less than $5.45 down at the low-cost provider here in Florida. So literally for the cost of one of your direct cremations, I can perform like 3 of mine and a couple of pets. What is the relevance of 2.6 million viewers? Well, the United States has a population of 340 million, so while the 2.6 million viewers sounds big, it is less than 1% of the total population of the United States. That misses the point. Just because 1% of the people have seen it doesn't mean jack. 1% seen it, how many are talking about it? How many people are blowing it up on social media? How many people are activated because of it? That's the number you want to worry about. The Deadline article says the viewership beat out some high-profile documentaries like Pee Wee as himself. I want to watch that. Chimp Crazy, have no idea what the hell that is. And Love Is One, The Cult of Mother God. Bruh. What is going on here? Love Is One, The Cult of Mother God. Whoo boy. I told you I plugged in all my memes. I meant it. I meant it for sure. In fact, you know what? Let me real quick. I want to pop this up because I just realized I am missing something. So we're just going to pop this right here. Whoops. Wow. I guess that, yeah. Somehow I deleted that. All right, well, let's just copy this. Come over here and paste that. Bye-bye. Yeah, here we go. This has got some good ones on it. If I can sneak a couple of these in, I got some quality garbage here, some meme garbage. It's going to be awesome. The good news is that those titles are not top of mind for me, and The Mortician is not being compared to the viewership of Titanic, The Wizard of Oz, and Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, The Lion King, or Jurassic Park. Bro, Jurassic Park, love it. My God, one of my favorite series ever. Too bad the second and third one kind of were like, well, the third one was definitely crap. The reboot with Guardians of the Galaxy, bro, those are pretty good. I like Jurassic World Dominion and whatnot. Those are pretty good. And I absolutely loved the last one where they brought back Goldblum and all of them. I thought that was cool. Really, really loved it. And I keep saying, man, that I'm going to do like a Lord of the Rings binge and just start with The Hobbit and then go ahead and actually gain 15 pounds sitting in my couch watching all the movies back to back one of these days. Because, man, it's been a while since I've seen that. Fun fact, one of the things I just backed on Kickstarter is a graphic novel based on L. Frank Baum's Oz series in general. It's someone that's kind of going in the direction that Wicked did and just filling in some blanks, doing some cool stuff, and that fascinates me. I love the Oz universe. There was a comic series sometime back, I think it was just called Oz. And I've got most of that in the closet here in my collection. I loved that series. That was a ridiculously new take on the Wizard of Oz mythos. And there was a wonderful miniseries that was on Sci-Fi called Tin Man, I think is what it was. Had some pretty big names on it. And man, I was glued to that series. I loved that series. So if you like The Wizard of Oz, you thought Wicked was cool, I'm telling you, Oz, the comic book series from about the mid-90s is pretty good. Tin Man is a wonderful little take on The Wizard of Oz. I think some of y'all would like that. Here are a couple more comparisons. The Burial, last year's Amazon Prime movie about funeral provider The Lowen Group, and their downfall was rated by watch time minutes and not viewership. However, if you use the minutes viewed, it would equal to a cross-platform viewership about 5 million at this point, almost double the viewership of The Mortician. Again, I think it's the wrong metric. Need to be looking at how many people are talking about it, even if they're not watching it. In case in point, I was on YouTube. Anyone who's been here a while knows that I don't have any network TV, like no cable, no satellite, none of that crap. And what I generally do is I spend my time either watching a streaming service like Netflix or Amazon Prime, or more than likely I am buried in YouTube watching videos of various things, generally educational content. And some tinfoil hat stuff, because that just, keeps me fresh. It is not how many people looking at it, it's how many people are talking about it. And one of the videos that came up was a morning news interview with the current president of the United States, where he drops an F-bomb on live TV. And I got to admit, I'm a little disappointed that didn't get more chatter. Because I click on this thing because literally the headline just said that Trump comments on the break of the ceasefire between Iran and Israel. And so I clicked on it, and I'm like, okay, well, let me hear what's going on, what he's saying about it. I knew a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the version I have doesn't have the censor. And I just started laughing. I'm like, there we go. Someone's had a spicy burrito this morning. Um, I thought, man, that just made my day. Wheel of Fortune has 7.9 and 8.3 million viewers per episode, but who talks about it? The last thing I heard about Wheel of Fortune, Pat Sajak was retiring. The next time I hear about Wheel of Fortune, Vanna White's going to retire. So people are watching it. No one's talking about it. The 2025 Super Bowl featuring the Chiefs versus the Eagles had a cross-platform viewership of 127.7 million views, about 37% of the American population. Important. And then, again, people talk about it because it's sports. It's inherently something people talk about. So in the long run, I would argue the Mortician was not a great promotion for death care. I'd agree with Tom. However, there was lessons to be learned, and the good news included that not a great deal of the public saw the series and the unscrupulous behavior of an uncommonly sinister family group of funeral home owners. This is kind of my problem with those type of series. They throw the shock value out so they can justify their budget and get people engaged with the platform. And again, I haven't seen this series. I think people need to get the other side of that. Like, a good documentary presents both sides and allows people to make their own decision as to what's right, what's wrong, or at least has some modifying factors as to why these are one-offs when people do this. But when they do it, it is extraordinarily ridiculous. Acquisitions, equity funding, new funeral homes, and the nexus between technology and traditional continues. Probably that meant to say tradition continues. In the last couple of weeks, notice articles, blah, 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 blah. You know what? I'm not going to read this one. Boring.
A few moments later.
So you're selling your funeral home and moving into retirement. I told you I have some good memes this time around, man. We keep hearing about 50% of the family. This was the one I wanted to bring up. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. We keep hearing that about 50% of the family-owned funeral homes in North America will change hands within the next decade. If there are about 20,000 funeral homes in the U.S. and Canada, it means 10,000 will be sold. That's a lot of transactions. It's a lot of lawyer fees for planning that transition. The companies that will help broker those deals should have some pretty good years during the next decade if that thinking continues to come to fruition. One thing that I wonder is who is going to be the buyer of all those businesses? CI. Sorry, what? The consolidators want the larger firms focusing on the firms of at least 300 cases unless there is a strategic bolt-on to present operations. It will be interesting to see who the buyers are and what the price points will be going forward. However, this article is not about the sale of your funeral home, but what you do after the sale. 2 for 1 at Chili's. Definitely. And like, if you don't go into toxic shock, you haven't lived well. I faced that dilemma a dozen years ago when, for several reasons, my brother and I decided it was our time to exit our 4th-generation funeral business and move into the next stage of our lives. While our children were welcome to work at the funeral business, we were also deliberate in letting them experience the big wide world where there were all kinds of other occupations that they might enjoy more. Turns out none of them were interested in death care and have all landed on their feet in occupations of their choosing. Using Tom Johnson at Johnson Consulting Group as our guide, we navigated the marketing and sale process of our business and found there was life after funeral service. Retirement, if you can call what I've done since I sold a funeral home retirement, carries its own cadence to it that is much different than the cadence of operating a funeral home where there seemed to be an endless amount of things on my plate that were left for the next day. That job, as much as I enjoyed it, had a cadence to it that never really let my mind get too far detached from what was happening at the funeral home. There was always something that I was responsible for tomorrow. And you know, this is probably something that's relatively fresh on my mind because of the fact that this point, some time ago, I joined Gulf Beach Masonic Lodge 291, Free and Accepted Masons on Madeira Beach in Florida. And it was an aging population at that point, and I can't say that really it's getting much younger for Masonry and Shriners and all that in general, but that's my retirement. a lot of the older gentlemen, God rest their souls, my good friend Pete, um, his retirement involved being a Shriner in doing shrine related things and being involved in masonry. And I've got a gentleman right now that, you know, best I can call him is just Mr. Mason. Um, Howard, he just published a book I've shared on Facebook, the history of the lodge, of Gulf Beach Lodge. It's now on Amazon. And you know what? I'm absolutely going to throw that up there, that if you are interested in Freemasonry, um, let's see. Boink. Here we go. It's going to be on Amazon. Boink. Try that again. That's what I'm looking for. So this looks to be the posting on the lodge Facebook page. Yeah, right here. I'll pull it up on Amazon. I'm going to stop short from endorsing it. My copy's getting delivered today. I think it's been pushed back to like somewhere between 7 and 9 p.m., but I'm getting it today. And I can't wait to get my hands on it because good times. Come on. Dude, why don't you want to be on Amazon? Let's go. So there it is, $19 in paperback. All sorts of good stuff. All sorts of good stuff here. If you want to learn more about my lodge, wonderful lodge. They got dozed by the hurricane that blew through last year. I'll do a shout out to the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of Florida and Grandmaster Atala. He presented the lodge a check with $15,000 towards the repair. We came up with cash. It was a $30,000 shortfall, and between that $15,000 and previous donations, that bumped him right up to like $27,000, almost erased the shortfall. And wonderful thing about Brother Howard here is he is donating all of the proceeds of the book towards filling up that shortfall. So if you want to support a good cause, you have maybe friends in masonry, or you have a family member that's masonry and you want to give them a little something, something. This is a pretty cool little gift, talking about all the worshipful masters of the lodge, who their officers were, their bios. I'm sorry to say that as you flip through it, you'll probably see my face in there with the little biography that I provided. Just really cool thing. That's my retirement. You know, when I'm ready to step back and probably teach a little bit part-time, live stream until they do the removal, that's what I want to do. Just last week, I encountered this article that is how 5 key retirement mistakes to avoid, published by Yahoo Finance. I've had almost a dozen years to look back on my situation. I found it interesting how, in looking back, Angie and I have avoided most of those mistakes, and our general intuition seems to have moved in sync with what the article states. For instance, one of the mistakes the article points out is that people who move to places to simply live move to places to live simply to save on taxes. We operated our funeral home and lived in Minnesota, which is a high-tax state. After retirement, we were intrigued about moving to Florida for the 6 months required to claim residency there, which would lower our tax burden, continue to live another 6 months in Minnesota. However, we tried renting for 3 months first to get an idea where we would purchase in Florida and how much we liked it. We loved the 3 months in Florida, but time proved to us that we were Minnesotans at heart and enjoyed being in Minnesota with our family for Christmas, and 3 months in Florida was enough for us. Bro, you gave up being Florida man? Oh, you're losing street cred, bro. You're losing street cred. You are dead to me, Tom. Angie pointed out that I'm a type A person, and that if and when hurricanes were damaging Florida, I would be at my wits' end in Minnesota, wondering what was happening to our home in Florida. That's legit. That's legit. That's legit. That's also probably why you buy yourself back then I would say buy yourself an inexpensive condo, 3 or 4 floors up. Probably not too much of a problem, and definitely don't buy beach property. Truth being told, if you were to buy something relatively inland, especially like northern Florida, chances are pretty good. At least you don't have to worry about flood damage. Home might blow away, but no flood damage. In any regard, since we have lots of funeral homeowners who read Funeral Director daily, and some of them are probably at this thought stage, I thought this article would be a good little primer on some things to think about when going into retirement after you sell your funeral home. And for those of you who are just starting your careers, that date is creeping. Okay, that date is creeping closer to you. Mistake number 1, underspending in early retirement while you are healthy and able to do things with no restrictions. Yeah. Okay, I'm not saying you want to live out of your car, right before you go into hospice care, but you need to enjoy the life while you can actually enjoy it. Prioritizing taxes over happiness in retirement location. Okay, focusing too much on market risk while ignoring other threats like inflation, poor tax bracket management, and claiming Social Security too early. Tiff writes, Minnesota can be beautiful in summer, especially here in Alexandria. Oh yeah, I love Minnesota. I visited Minnesota a couple years ago for an American Board conference. Loved it. Like, absolutely loved it. I can probably tell you that there are some areas in the Midwest that I am strongly considering moving to, or probably even like northern Florida. Because I got to be honest, I miss Florida. The people I know are in Florida. There are even some people still in Miami that I miss terribly. And having the convenience of driving 5 hours, maybe grabbing a hotel or an Airbnb or something, hanging out for a couple days, especially towards the holidays, see their family, see their kids growing up. That's something that I want to go back on. That's the one big thing here in Texas that I don't have is I simply don't have the connections. And where I live, I got some great neighbors and whatnot. Probably need to spend more time visiting Masonic lodges and getting active in the shrine to get me out of the house and get me some more friends. But I feel like me being in Texas is a transitory thing. I'm here for, work and not really much else, and looking forward to maybe returning to Florida or whatever. Problem is, my geographical location is very, very convenient to every one of the schools that we have. Basically, I'm a 12-hour drive to 2 of my schools and 45 minutes to the other. Lakes were a pleasant surprise for me. Lakes are great. Yeah. That's the one thing Florida doesn't have, man. It does not have an abundance of that sort of geography. There are some beautiful areas like Crystal River, Rainbow River, where you can get something like that, but you don't get like lakes proper like you get up there in Minnesota. Lack of diversity is the major downside. Yeah. It's pretty much Crackerville, man. Like, yeah. I feel you. I just thought this was a cool phrase: debt, demographics, and disruption. When I sat down to catch my breath on Wednesday afternoon after returning from an afternoon of working on the lawn at our lake cabin. Speaking of lakes, dude, I will tell you folks that when I first started looking at jobs in the Midwest, okay, so I was looking at a job at another school here in the Midwest some years prior. And unfortunately, hey man, the salaries in Florida were much better than the salaries I was looking at this one university. And if I was in the situation I am now, where my parents have passed away, there's property that is mine that I could do basically what I want with. Those years ago, there was a lake home I was looking at in that state that was like, I forget, 400 grand, which is what I basically damn near paid for the house I'm in now. And it was probably another 1,000 square foot, and it was lakeside. And I looked at that same home now, and it's something like, damn near $1 million. And I'm like, crap. I would love something like that. That's what I'm kind of looking forward to, quote unquote, in retirement. Finding a nice home as long as I can enjoy it. And then when things just start turning crappy for me because I'm getting too old, yeah, I might actually go back to Florida where it's nice and warm. And if the hurricane takes me, then, I enter Valhalla the way I'm supposed to. Beaches over lakes. I'd back that. Bit colder for throwing yourself in with some flippers in a scuba tank, but also generally much clearer. So, like, you don't really have to worry too much about viz unless it's like, I don't know, an old quarry or something. You can easily kick up silt and crap. That's the one thing that was nice about doing some of the dives I did back there in Florida at like Rainbow River, that you get in there and you get to see like infinitely. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Diving in the Gulf, yeah, that sucked. That was a waste of time. It was mid-afternoon when I heard this phrase on the Clam Countdown on Fox Business Channel, which is aired 1 hour prior to market's closing. Is there anything here? Yeah, I'm not going to read this one. 722. Let's move on to something different. Oh, you need 1 million up now? Yeah, dude, I'm not. Like, I will literally move to some place that they are distilling whiskey in the forest before I pay $1 million for a home. That is even suggesting that I can afford something like that, which I pretty much can't. At least not at this point in my life. It's that's just not there. Dignity Funeral Directors not afraid to make changes. Returns to profitability. This was cool because this is something I think over in the United Kingdom. Dignity Funeral Directors is now the name of a company once known as Public Company Dignity PLC that was taken private in 2023. Company is a funeral service provider based in the UK. Tiffany, found you something in the UK. They recently reported their 2024 financials to the company's house in Great Britain, and in that report, which is Dignity's first full year of operations since the company was taken private in a buyout, Dignity Funeral Director reported a pre-tax profit of $9.7 million. That's not bad. Obviously, they are converting it because they do not use U.S. dollars in the European Union or Great Britain yet. Maybe Trump will buy it and open a couple more McDonald's, right? The profit number turns out is pre-tax loss during the 2023. Okay, so workforce decreased from 3121 from 3493. So what a surprise! You cut your payroll and you're saving money. Company had a 10% decline in funeral volume. So isn't that crazy? They lost 10% of their volume, but they iced a bunch of people. And case volume was down. Company shuttered 90 branch locations because they failed to meet the company's financial targets. This is important, okay? This is important. When you realize that there are problems with the company, you have to take immediate action to fix it. Like, I think that's one of the things that people don't get. That if your company is getting into like even remotely bad waters, you need to be on top of that, thinking, wondering what might happen and what do you need to do to save the life of the organization. Dignity reported they managed to pay down over $185 million of debt and bring in free cash of $35 million with the sale of properties no longer used. Wow, that makes a huge difference. And then Dignity acquired end-of-life services firm Fairwill in an acquisition announced at $17.4 million, which that means they're also then getting additional revenue streams. And if it's an end-of-life service, that means they're basically getting money from government and other places because it's a hospice facility. So there is some ways they can offset any losses and whatnot from the funeral decline with diversifying their portfolio. No, hope I never see that day. You hope. Hey, man, we all dance the Reaper. All I can hope is that I enter Valhalla as I deserve at some point. Leader in funeral streaming. So I thought this was cool. Now, I got to be honest. I have a sweet spot for the company TributeCast. TributeCast was one of the first companies to do funeral streaming. And they are strong supporters of the American Board of Funeral Service Education and other places that I've participated. So, hey, you might have another option. TributeCast is the one that I have experience with, and they're just a wonderful group of people. Can generate leads, boost e-commerce, and connect guests with their services through streaming. Now, see, I find that interesting. Okay, I find that interesting. When you go to mortuary school, if you're in mortuary school and haven't taken mortuary law yet, when a person comes into a funeral home and signs a guest book and provides their contact information, okay, that is not considered them soliciting services. What used to happen back in the old days when people would actually fill out the damn book the way it's supposed to is they'd put their name and their address and whatnot because that's how the family knew to send the thank you card to them. Everything is there for them. They put the label on it. They ship it out. So what funeral homes would do is they would take the pages, photocopy them, and then they would create mailing lists. Pretty crappy thing to do, right? Well, here's the fun part. If you sign up for the stream, okay, if you sign up for the stream, is that going to be considered a solicitation? Because it's not filling out a guest book. And if you click the button that says I consent in order to access the stream, you're consenting to the disclosure of your personal information. There's all sorts of stuff they can take from you. There's some crazy stuff out there, folks. Crazy stuff of how you can dig out personal information from pictures and stuff like that. So a little crazy. According to One Room, every service streamed through One Room reaches an average of 30 guests, and 1/3 of them are local. The RevGen bundle is a way to turn that reach into real opportunities, giving guests simple ways to interact with your services and take the next step. I'm telling you that at my funeral, all of you who listen, every single one of you had better click the middle finger emoji and just fill up the chat. Like, absolutely get that shit banned from modern platforms. 100%. That is the way you send me knocking on Odin's door. These tools are made possible by One Room's recently upgraded viewer, redesigned to support future innovation and to better reflect each funeral home's brand. A warmer guest experience ensures that online services feel personal and position the funeral home at the heart of it. Ooh, I don't know about that. I don't view online services as personal. Like, that's not the same to me to walk into someone's home. It's not creating brand loyalty. I think it's a cool feature, but it's essentially, well, this show is crappy. I'm going to click this and go back to watching macrame videos on YouTube. We built a platform that supports your brand and your growth, says Brady Cox, CEO of One Room. The RevGen bundle is just the beginning of what streaming can unlock when it's done right. I'd be interested to see. Hopefully, these folks have a booth in Chicago this year, an FDA. I would love to see what it is they do different from Tribute Cast and what they talk and what their plans are for something like this. Once again, according to One Room, these features are a first in a series of upcoming releases aimed at helping funeral homes drive connection, conversation, and growth. With a stronger platform in place, One Room is positioned to roll out further enhancements throughout 2025. And you know what? Where is the remote? We're going to turn this thing off. We'll talk about Amazon bin stores here in a second and why Professor Finn loves Amazon bin stores. When I talk about, okay, let's just talk about Amazon bin stores. Love Amazon bin stores. So if you don't know what these bin stores are where you can go to buy basically return trash that people send back to Amazon. And they typically have a day off during the week. Then the next day they open, they charge anywhere between $10 and $15 per product, all the way down till the following week, 6 days from then, where it's like $1 or something just to empty the store. And while I was there, I happened to find this remarkable little item, which is a cordless essential oil diffuser. And I was like, I do like my diffusers, man. So it was the day where stuff was like $9 an item. So I didn't bother looking it up. I just wanted, if it didn't work, I'm out $9. I'll cry myself to sleep that night. And it worked just fine. It turns out these things are like $180. So I can't say that results are typical. You can find a lot of gems in the rough. And we have a couple of these type of stores here in the Dallas area. But man, I love this thing. I love it to death, dude. Way to go, bin stores. One Room is a hands-free funeral streaming platform used by funeral homes across North America, Australia, New Zealand, with zero effort setup. Yeah, like, I don't know why people advertise that as a feature. I expect zero effort setup for something like this because funeral directors, especially older ones, are not too technologically inclined. Automated scheduling and full guest support. It removes the burden of streaming from funeral staff while opening up new opportunities to grow. I don't know what people expect their staff to do to stream things. I mean, every so often I will see, the cheapy version of people using Facebook, like literally having an employee sit there with their phone, like live streaming it from their on-call phone. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's pretty classy. Y'all are, Just at the absolute pinnacle of customer service and technology. Hell yeah. Let's get back to share screen. Now, this one sounds like fun. This one sounds like fun. What do we got? Who might be our future competition? I'm excited for this one. Like, super excited for this one. Smart companies look for a line extension to help them grow. I learned about a little about line extension late 1990s and early 2000s when I served on a board of Wells Fargo. At the time, CEO Richard Kovacevic realized that Wells Fargo had satisfied customers in the banking business. He realized that they were already our customers and that Wells Fargo could grow more greatly if we simply gave our already satisfied customers more products. Yeah, that's something we're seeing a lot of is conversation is like, listen, it's nice to go ahead and give incentives to attract new people, but what about the lifers? We need to reward them in some way, shape, or form. The average banking customer has 16 financial products: savings account, checking account, mortgage, line of credit, auto loan, IRA, insurance policies, and on and on. Kovacevic wanted Wells Fargo not to just be their checking or savings account bank, but to get all 16 products if possible. And I will tell you that is extraordinarily convenient. For the first time ever, when I purchased the truck I now have, I was able to get financing through my regular lender at a competitive rate. I'm sorry, through my banking institution as my auto loan lender at a fairly competitive rate. So paying my auto loan is like super easy. I can see it immediately, and if I wanted to pay it off tomorrow, if I had the cash in there, I could just transfer to the account and it's done. So there is some level of convenience and truthfulness to this. Kovacevic used to say, we have great banking market share, but we don't have our customers' wallet share of products. That's when the concept of cross-selling came to Wells Fargo. I remember that going down. Tellers were instructed, depending on the current transaction being done, to mention to clients, have you ever thought of having one of our financial planners look at your investments, or have you thought of redoing your mortgage with us? The whole situation and goal was all about having our satisfied customers do more business with Wells Fargo in lines of business that they didn't currently use Wells Fargo. The secret in Kovacevic's mind was that they were already satisfied customers, so Wells Fargo would have very low customer acquisition costs. Very true. Wells Fargo became the standard for cross-selling. Here's a couple of articles that I found on their success. And I remember when they got all sorts of deep crap because at some point it went overboard. You do it. Funeral homes use line extension every day. We've extended our product lines from giving funeral service to selling caskets, to selling vaults, to selling monuments, and some funeral homes continue to extend and sell into estate help. And on the other side of the death, we've extended our line extension into pre-need. And even with our facilities, we're extending their business lines from simply being funeral facilities to event centers, which include non-death care related events, which is the wave of the future. Man, I was talking about that earlier today with that group of people I was talking about. All the big funeral establishments, all the huge businesses, the people who are wheeling and dealing and pushing forward, their facilities do not look like traditional funeral homes, and they do not intend them to even remotely serve just that purpose. They intend it to be a community center. And funeral homes are no different than Wells Fargo was. Once they get a satisfied client, it's pretty easy to move that client along the line extension to different products. This was one of Wells Fargo's main tenets about customer retention. The more services you sell to individuals, the more profitable those customers are, and the harder it is for them to break away. Very true. I've had the same banking institution. I've had the same banking institution probably since 1995 or 1996. I don't mean I've had the same bank, but I've had the same institution. So I started with Republic Bank was the name of it. Then it got bought by First Union. Then it was Branch Banking and Trust, BB&T, which it was until it got purchased by Truist. And I have had that same account the entirety of my working career. I've memorized my bank account number. I haven't memorized the routing number, but I memorized the account number. I've had it so long. So I would absolutely be invested. And one of the big things that I don't want to deal with when it finally does come up is I don't want to screw around with my bank stuff because everything is connected to that bank. Hence why it is super convenient that my new auto loan is now attached to that. Have you ever thought about what business or industry has a line extension that butts right up against death care, and could that business move into death care? Today's out-of-the-box death care idea brings you an idea of who one of those potential industries might be. Here we go. In my way of thinking, the most likely business to extend in death care would be hospice providers. Oh boy. Oh my boy. You do not want hospice providers. That is a tremendous conflict of interest. The state of Florida tried that. Hospice providers in the state of Florida tried that while I was in funeral service as an apprentice. They were moving into the funeral business. Again, line extension, right? In the opposite direction. They're coming into us. And that creates a horrible monopoly. So it's different, right? If the funeral home goes into the hospice business, so to speak, but otherwise, dude, they'll shut you down. Hospice is one of, hospice damn near has a monopoly in their areas for those type of situations. That's really, really dangerous if you line extend into that. Think about it. They spend the last 90 to 100 days of the client's life with the family, many of the nurses becoming trusted advisors. Not wrong. In the entire time I was in practice there, I only had maybe 2 situations where the family would have murdered their hospice nurse if they were given the opportunity, and that's hundreds of calls. And I never waded into that because I'm going to see that nurse again. I might never see the family again. For many of those in hospice, the hospice company was probably a provider of home health, nursing home, or assisted living to the client prior to the hospice care. In essence, they've already become a valued client of the hospice provider. Would they count on them for cremation services if offered? Oh, bro, absolutely. That's the problem. Would they prefer to go online with an unknown provider? With the high numbers of cremation, with the ability to put transfer care specialists and celebrants on or death doulas on staff, in addition to chaplains already on staff by many hospice providers, they are almost ready to provide death care cremation services today. And in some markets, they tried. And if they did, funeral home businesses would have gone out of business. So one of the very rare times where I'm like, this is dangerous, man. May not happen today and might not be hospice, but I think traditional funeral home owners should always be watching their flanks on who might become competitors in the near future. Yeah, and if hospice does, give up now, man. Just sell your business, walk the hell away, because hospice will shut you down in your area because damn near everyone goes through hospice. I saw this and was like, ooh, what do we have here?
Hello there.
A 4-day work week for funeral service professionals. I keep hitting the like, share, subscribe instead of just going back to the to the blank frame. So sorry about that. It pops up. I don't mean for that to be annoying. It's just that's the button that's there, and I keep aiming for the same thing out of habit. If you've been involved in leadership for any length of time, you will find that any decision that you make, even if you think it's the greatest decision in the world, will not be taken as beneficial to all parties. No shit. Oh my God, is there some truth to that? Holy crap. Yeah, I'm just going to say, yeah, it's crazy. I never would have thought it, but that's absolutely the truth, man. Absolutely the truth. I think of this when I remember decisions that I made that included team-wide financial bonuses for reaching certain number of death calls per year. For instance, I operated with an individual employee financial bonuses. In addition to salaries of $1,000 for our businesses reaching 250 calls, $2,000 for reaching 275, and $6,000 per employee for reaching 325 annual calls. I would have died for you with that type of a bonus structure. Literally, I would have basically stripped down to my skivvies, grabbed a fork and a spoon in each hand, and marched into Mordor for that. I was somewhat taken aback in the years when we did 325 calls that some of the staff thought they'd worked too hard and said that they would rather have time off than a financial incentive. And if you give them the time off, they're going to get pissed because you didn't give them the cash. You see, my parents instilled a work ethic in me where I saw work and the financial benefits from it as one of the imperatives of the job, and you took time off when you were not busy. In my rural area, I assimilated the thought of the farmer who had to cut hay when the sun was shining because you can't cut it when it's raining or wet. In any regards, that is just an example of differing people having different attitudes about life, how life should be lived. In my world, my profession paid for my life and leisure activities. I think some people look at it just the opposite. Their life and leisure are supported by their profession, i.e., what comes first in your life, your profession or your activities. Well, that's called a work-life balance. Whichever it is, that is okay. It's just a matter of how we look at life that differs. So, we are not all wired to work 40 to 60 hours per week if we can live our lives and be more balanced as a human being if we can work less. The question is, can we bring enough income in if we don't work the 40-hour work week? There are some countries, I think, that do that. They work a 32-hour work week. And a lot of modern companies, they absolutely give you a 32-hour work week, and maybe they get you to 40 because they don't want you to approach overtime. Here's a recent article about the country of Iceland that in 2019 adopted the 4-day work week, working 35 to 36 hours per week instead of the traditional 40 hours per week. And here in the U.S., if you're working a 4-day work week, you're making your 40 because you're doing 4 10-hour days. Initial fears, similar to those observed during similar debates in other countries such as Germany, focus mainly on a potential collapse in productivity or the complexity of wage compensation. Yeah, no, that's stupid. However, the Icelandic experience has swept away those fears. Reports, particularly those analyzed by think tanks such as Autonomy, show that productivity has not only been maintained, but improved in some cases. Yeah, you just stagger your people so you're getting a 5-day whatever, and they're, working longer on some of those days. I can tell you, I thought the 4-day work week idea was very appealing. How can this be explained? The answer lies largely in significant improvement in workers' well-being. The reduction in working time has resulted in a significant drop in stress levels and fewer cases of burnout, blah, 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 blah. So I'm a baby boomer, and my self-health is maintained partly by being productive through my work. Why else would I spend hours writing a blog at age 67 when I could be on the golf course or at the coffee shop? Or writing the blog at the golf course while you're golfing. Follow me for more life advice, Tom. However, as the younger generations are telling us, that is not always the case with them. They seem to be healthier with a more work-life balance that allows them more time to enjoy non-working hours. There's a thing right now going on called the infinite work cycle, the infinite work day, which is you feel that you're working your 5 days just to get to the 2 you have off, and one of those days you're basically losing for whatever things you couldn't do during the time that you were working, and then you are right back at the beginning and it recycles. And I can tell you, I am absolutely both feet up to my waist deep in that lake, man. That is where I am at. And teaching, I had very long hours. But I was able to schedule my days where, like on Fridays, some of you were part of my Friday embalming labs. Dude, we finished lab. Vaya con Dios, my darling. I'm off campus. Bye-bye. Don't call me. I'm gone. Like, see ya. That was one of the great perks of being a tenured professor, is here's my work week. I choose where my classes are, through faculty selection, and I'm jetting as soon as quitting time is up. Maybe there's something, happening on campus, got to stay an extra hour or two, have a meeting, bump into a coworker, have a cafecito or something, whatever. But otherwise, I'm gone. And then I get all day Saturday, all day Sunday, most of my Friday. Hey, man, it's the weekend. It's different in the job I'm in now. Like, my days drag together. When I get to the weekend, I feel it is a chore because then I have to spend one whole day running all of my errands, and then I have Sunday. And by the time I'm just starting to be like, oh, thank God, it's Monday morning again. Part of that is my geographical location. Back in Miami, man, wherever I live, whether it was Hollywood or Lauderhill, I could get in the car, drive 5 to 10 minutes, and get anything and everything that I needed, whether it's sundries, whether it's groceries, whether it's tacos. Like, dude, anything I wanted, I could get. Here outside of Dallas, it is a minimum 15 to 20 minute drive just to get to something that looks like civilization. So the nearest Walmart Supercenter is over here in Roy City. That is a 15 to 20 minute drive, no ifs, ands, or buts. And if I want anything past that, I'm either driving to Saxe, or I'm driving to Fate, or I'm driving to Wiley. And if I need anything that looks like modern civilization, so to speak, I'm having to go into Dallas proper. That's a 40-minute to 1 hour drive. Once I'm in there, I'm immersed. I mean, back in Miami, we have Sunrise Mall. We have a Sunrise Mill. What is it, Sawgrass Mills? We have Dolphin Mall. Over here, I got Stonebriar. I got Galleria. I've got North Park. I've got Grapevine Mills. I've got all these different like major shopping centers and grocery stores to murder anything that we have in South Florida. Too bad they suck and they don't have like the charm of Publix, because absolutely if like HEB and Publix merged and put their brains together, that'd be it, man. Talking about the hospice owning funeral home monopoly, if HEB could sell pub subs, the Midwest would lose its collective mind. That would just break everybody's mind. But I think the death care profession needs to take a real hard look at this dilemma. Schedule your people. I'm telling you, the 3-day weekend works great in death care. In fact, I was lucky enough to work for a really progressive firm, Anderson McQueen Company, and they owned Anderson McQueen Funeral Homes, Reese Funeral Home, and A Life Tribute Funeral Home back in the day. My work schedule changed with them to a 5 days on, or 6 days on, half day on Saturday, Sundays off, and then work until Thursday. And then I had a 3-day weekend. I'm sorry, no, I worked until Friday, and then I had a 3-day weekend. I had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off, and then I report back to Tuesday, and we repeat the cycle. So I'd have this like, rotating schedule. Those 3 days, that was great. Those 3 days was great because I could wake up, I'd have one day to do anything stupid I needed to do that would even remotely look like errands, and then Saturday was a play day, Sunday was a play day, and I had one weekday where I could do anything that I would need to do. So if I needed a doctor's appointment or something like that, I could schedule it because it was a weekday, not just something on a weekend. So I think that is probably one of the most important things, is that workers get a weekday off so they can plan those things that they need to plan without larger interruption. Now, I'm living the life right now because I have a remote position. I flat out admit it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Why? Because, like today, I've recently visited my general practitioner and asked him, I just realized it's been like 2 years since I met with a sleep apnea doctor. Do you know someone? Who should I go to? Do I need a referral? Put me in, coach. Let me play. So he set me up with a local guy, and called the office today and set an appointment for next week. And the cool part about me is no one's going to miss me for that time that I am now going to the doctor's office. Now, I had to reschedule an appointment, one of my ongoing weekly commitments, but everything else I can basically do from my truck, which is something I'm quite used to doing, is setting up my little notepad, put the phone on, sit there in the car. I can be in front of the doctor's office, finish up my stuff, go deal with the doc, come back out. My lunch hour was taken by that, and I'm, back on the clock. So there is something to be said about giving people a weekday off to do those sort of things, which then leads to the problem that you need to do them on those dates because that's why you're getting that type of a day off. I don't know that it is equivalent if you break it up, right? So if you do like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday off, I don't think that works very well. I found that usually pissed me off more than it was worth because I'm not really getting a break that is significant. I simply just have another day and then I'm right back to the grind without really a way to recover from it. So I do think you either do the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or you do like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not a big fan of that. I know there's some work plans that are like that. I really think you need to have a weekday and a weekend thing. Let's see. Tiff's been blowing up the chat. 4 days is doable and income or call volume wouldn't differ if structure and expectation shifted. Yeah, like, dude, you can't do it if you keep everything the same. Like, that's just common sense. You cannot do a 5-day work week with people working 4 days. You have to change the business model in some way, which means you have to rotate people's staff. You have to think about how things are done and put some effort into the thought. And above all else, when you run into the problem, just solve the problem and don't revert back like, oh my God, this is going to be hard. Bro, you changed the workout. Of course it's going to be different. Of course you're going to have different soreness. Figure it out and push through it. I was on call every other weekend and on alternating weeks, 1 or 2 nights during the week, and working office hours all week as an intern. Rough schedule, yeah. I hate to say it, that's living the intern life. I've had enough hours to finish my internship in 9 months versus a year. I very rarely worked weekends as a funeral director in the UK. Well, hell, I better go put some beans on toast, man, and head over there, right? Love United Kingdom. Y'all need to learn how to season your damn food. Um, giving you hell. Um, now that I think about it, I don't think there's a lot of English places here in Texas. I don't have to look for that. Like, just literally English cuisine. I don't think there's anything like that I've seen in Texas. I see actually a lot of Indian. I've seen Middle Eastern. I had a lot of even. I mean, everyone's got French cuisine because, of course, it's French cuisine. I don't want to look at it. I want to eat it. Um, yeah, I can't think of any place that's good old fashioned Brit food or anything like that. And there was a place like that in the St. Petersburg area, and I think I knew a place there in Miami, but I had to go to for something like that. So if I wanted like bangers and mash or something like that, like I knew what place I needed to go to. And now that I think about it, it was almost always either an Irish pub, an English pub, or a fish and chips place. Just get the best food. Yeah, dude, seriously. Like that's the one cool thing about I think the United Kingdom is that y'all have so much diversity now that bro, yeah. I'd hate to I don't mean to be like negative towards anyone, but it's almost British to go get a kebab. Like you just know that kebabs are a thing. And hey, I'm all for that because Middle Eastern cuisine, they know how to actually, spice their food, yo. Like bring it. In fact, there's a wonderful place, no joke, there's a wonderful place down the street here in Wiley, I think it is, called Kebabs and More. And I'm only permit myself to eat there once a month because one, anything you buy there is basically Texas sized and it's super cheap and it's super damn good. And I just love Middle Eastern cuisine in general. I mean, they do fresh hummus. They do, oh man, it's so good. In fact, I know where I'm eating this weekend because I haven't had it this month. Fat guy gonna eat. If we're going to acquire and retain the best and brightest for our procession, we need to come up with the ability to offer 4-day work weeks to our professional personnel. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think is really important. Now, the fun part is the owners don't get 4-day work weeks because you're the owner. So you can try to do that as an owner, but you have to recognize that when you are the owner, that might not be the case. You might not get that as frequently as your staff. The challenge we'll be doing in a world where revenues per case are stressed. It's pretty simple that death care businesses need to use the technology available to us to hasten this advance. How can we alter what we are doing to use less human hours per death? So, one, I don't know that you can reduce the hours, human hours per death. I suppose I'd have to think a little bit more about that because that level of contact has to be there. Now, do they need to be sitting at a funeral home? Probably not. You could let them work remote, maybe come into the funeral home if something happens. Um, People more often now are used to setting schedules and appointments to come in and do things rather than them just showing up at the door. So you always need to have, we have the lights on for you. Someone's going to walk in and you're going to want to work with them. But largely, I think that you can very easily go to an appointment model and probably, have a healthier work environment. And you will lose calls. I mean, if you say, hey, we do not do after hours stuff, that's the reality of it. And I think that would hurt call volume. And I don't see a lot of funeral homes doing that unless they're like low cost providers. But certainly that's one of the ways you can change it. See, work block center my helping us. Tom writes, it's tough for me to come to grips with the situation because I always just worked until the job was finished. Ditto. That's not always the way of the world anymore, though. Yeah, like that's the way I work. Is I go into work and I stay there till the work is done, and I'll stay later if I'm doing something cool because then it's not work. Like then it's quiet. Um, I find it's harder for me to work at home because the work is there. So quite literally, the only time I am in this room is when I am working or I'm doing stuff like this. I do not do work in the living room. I don't do work on the patio. I don't do work anywhere in the house. The only other place that I'll do work is in the car, out of necessity if the situation calls for that. I don't generally like it because then I don't have all the tools at my hand, but I can do certain things in the car just as effectively as I do here. I just don't have the level of connection. Just last week, I had the opportunity to be on the University of Minnesota campus for a reunion. Hint, hint. Next time Tom up there, Tiff, go ahead and slap and say, howdy. Professor Finn reads your crap all the time. Woohoo! Please don't be walking up and abusing 67-year-old men. With your type of luck, that would be like you'd probably break bones or something, osteoporosis. I planned my visit to arrive early for two reasons. First, I want to avoid heavy traffic, and secondly, to give myself some time to visit my old office and say hello to some of the administrative staff that I worked with. Okay, yeah, nice. Move it along. Boop, 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 boop. It looks like we're going to run a little bit past 8 o'clock, if y'all don't mind. I saw this thing about royalties, and that really intrigued me. The negotiations to sell and or purchase a funeral home generally involve what one is buying and how they are paying for it. Yeah. One term you don't hear very often, or at least I've never heard, is royalty payment or royalty stream. What I'm talking about is a future payment to the seller by the buyer that is a percentage of the gross operating sales going forward. Most royalty payment agreements have a set time built in, but some are perpetual. Yeah, that actually, royalties are a good way to self-finance through a funeral homeowner to a successor. Is instead of like an outright thing, they agree to pay royalties for a certain amount of time after maybe payments for like mortgage or facilities or something like that have stopped. So it's one of those negotiating texts. I've seen some people try to do that. That would be interesting. I would be interested to see how royalties work. Now, if you're a funeral homeowner and you come up with something cool and you give it a clicky brand name, there is no reason why you shouldn't be franchising and licensing that to others. So that way, your competition is making you a little bit of extra cheddar. 4 things to come to death care. So what are these 4 things? Oh, you see Tom all the time? Cool. I guess I need to bump into this guy at some point and thank him because I'm always reading his articles on my live stream. So thank God, this stuff really isn't copyright. And even if it was, fair use, baby, for the win. But I really do I like his stuff. And when I read these things with you folks, very rarely do I read them ahead of time. This is a cold read as I'm looking at it, and we can have like an authentic response discussion, that sort of thing. That's the way I like doing things. I don't like prepping and then coming in. If I was doing a podcast and interviewing and crap like that, different story. But just me sitting here being, good looking and happy. Here we go. 4 thoughts. 1, family funeral homes being sold not only for cash prices, but with some part of the purchase price paid by the buyer to be in royalty payments moving forward based on a percentage of future revenues that the business generates. Again, has an article that I just basically skipped over about that. Really cool idea. If you're going to do something like that, you really want to sit down with your heirs and a proper attorney to discuss that. If you need an attorney, you have, again, not an endorsement, just shout out to my former boss, Bill McQueen at Legacy Protection Lawyers there in St. Petersburg, Florida. That is their bread and butter. They do stuff like this. I'd recommend that you take if you're looking at something like that, you might want to have one of their lawyers look at it. And the best part about Bill is Bill's a licensed funeral director and had a family business, so Bill knows exactly where people are coming from. So shout out to my old homie. Glad to see that your law firm has grown. Just wonderful, and wish you every success. The 4-day work week for professional employees of funeral homes. Well, this was a harbinger of things to come, right? Hospice services moving into death care and a higher percentage of death care service being paid for by a more socially motivated government. I don't know about that. I don't know that I want the government paying for too much of anything to do with funeralization where they might limit the options or limit things that happen. Again, this goes back to, I guess, personal views on what government is and what it should be doing. And in my perspective, government should fill in the blanks in some areas and provide a little bit of respite, but government should not be telling me what I need to be doing and what everything is. That seems to be a bit more overreach. So I am all for finding out ways for government to assist in the process, but not for paying for it. That is something that we need to just have honest conversations with. Because when does that stop? Right? At what point does it stop where the government has to be involved and help you because you can't be a functional adult? Does that mean the government needs to take over how you pay your mortgages, what type of homes you can earn? That, I don't know, man. That's just something that's near and dear to me. I am not a big fan of that. I think that goes a bit too much in the communist socialist era. All for having conversations and finding workarounds because that's what productive adults do. You don't have to get everything your way. You just need to sit down, have an honest conversation, and work towards a common goal and take what you can get, and the other party takes what they can get. But for the most part, I don't know that I want government paying for it. And if you are being responsible, and the way you're responsible is through education, it shouldn't be an issue, right? If you want to have a decent funeral and you're in your 20s, don't have to put away a lot of cash. Like, no one plans to die in their 40s or their 50s, right? People plan to die probably somewhere between their early 70s into the 90s these days. Bro, if you set aside $100 a week, $20 a week, whatever it is, just throw it into a savings account, forget about it, you'll have enough money for your funeral and probably then some. Then all you have to remember is to have someone else on the account that can access the cash. But fact of the matter is, if that time is getting close, you don't need to finance anything, and that's going to piss off your funeral home because they're, financing works for them because that's what builds the insurance payout and whatnot. You can just go in and pay for your stuff and it's done. So again, I'm all for responsible adult behavior, education, and making sure people are having authentic discussions. Now, the best part of my night is this wonderful article that we're going to read. Bridging the Gap. A newly licensed funeral director's perspective on tackling the industry's staffing shortage, June 5th, by a guest author. Okay, by a guest author. Introduction. The funeral profession is built on compassion, care, and continuity. I will admit I have read this one prior. Values that have long been passed down through generations. Traditionally, many funeral homes were family-run businesses, with children stepping into the roles of their parents and grandparents. I saw this legacy firsthand during my time at Leverton & Sons in London, a firm that has remained family-owned and operated since 1789, and is currently being run by eighth-generation Levertons. Let that sink in. This business has existed longer, or almost as long as the United States of America. That's crazy. Okay? Today, the landscape of funeral service is changing significantly. The majority of mortuary science graduates are now first-generation funeral directors, indicating a shift from the traditional family business model. I like that. There are citations. Why? Because there's going to be some keyboard warrior out there going,
But, cite your sources, cite your sources.
As a newly licensed funeral director in the U.S., following a decade of experience in the U.K., I have encountered a sobering reality. Our profession is facing a critical staffing crisis. Today's Funeral Director Daily article is authored by Tiffany Hill, who we have the pleasure of being in our chat tonight. So shout out to her. Love you to death, kiddo. So happy all the success and what you're doing. It was great to read this article. Fewer people are entering the field, more are leaving due to burnout, and many funeral homes have no succession plans. The number of funeral homes in the U.S. declined from about 19,900 in 2010 to 18,800 in 2021, reflecting both economic pressure and shrinking workforce. According to the National Funeral Directors Association, employment of funeral service workers is projected to grow only 3% from 2022 to 2032, slower than the average for all other occupations. This naturally raises the question, how can we attract and retain the next generation of funeral service professionals? Understanding the staffing shortage. Y'all need to pay attention because that one's important, okay? A ticking clock. The shortage of funeral service professionals has been building quietly for years. The NFDA reports that over 60% of funeral directors plan to retire by 2028. Not this guy. Just as annual deaths are projected to reach 3.67 million by 2060. With fewer new entrants and an aging population, we're at risk of being unable to meet the growing demand for funeral service professionals. In my own experience, I've seen teams stretch thin, handling 3 services a day, managing transfers late into the night, and still trying to deliver meaningful, personalized care. The pressure is mounting, and the pipeline isn't keeping pace. The family-run model that once defined the industry is in decline. Today's children of funeral directors are often choosing alternative career paths, which is understandable given the emotional toll, long hours, and lifestyle sacrifices they've witnessed. 75% of funeral home owners currently lack a formal succession plan, which is crazy because all the major organizations are talking about this. There are articles about this on this website. There are people like me that talk about this. I hear it literally at every conference I go to. Succession planning. 100%. I hear it all the time, and people just don't seem to be listening. The absence of these successors leads to consolidation and closures in rural areas, resulting in fewer options, longer wait times, and a diminished personal connection for grieving families. Which, for people like Rachel, who might have a problem with the local area that they're in, you simply wait long enough, you open your own business. Because all your competition disappears, now you have a pocket of people that need something, and if you're the only business in town, you win by default. Barriers to entry. Becoming a funeral director is a rewarding journey, but not an easy one. Preach that. Most states require completion of an accredited mortuary science degree.
The proper term is funeral service education. Thank you very much.
Passing the 2-part national board exam, arts and sciences, a state-specific laws exam, which varies in format and difficulty, and a year-long internship or apprenticeship with a requirement to complete a certain number of cases, embalming arrangements, and services, and this varies across states, e.g., exempli gratis. California requires a 2-year internship, but we don't care about California because we don't talk about Bruno. For those relocating, and Jolene, if you listen to this later, I love you. I just absolutely have to throw shade at your state. For those relocating, the process often includes retesting or repeating internships, making it difficult to move or respond to workforce needs across state lines. In a profession already facing acute labor shortages, the absence of national reciprocity and inconsistency in professional requirements are formidable barriers for licensing professionals, or for licensed professionals, because hard word today, seeking to transition from one jurisdiction to another. Exactly. Like, there was a state that I'm not going to mention because mentioning New York would be extraordinarily unprofessional. But when I tried to apply up there, because I was thinking about taking a job up there, the absolute load of shit that I was given absolutely turned me off to the state 100%. They're stating requirements that don't even exist in their laws. Why? Because they don't want someone coming into their state. And that's ridiculous to me. And even after I had completed the requirements that were stated to me literally years earlier, because now, fast forward 7, 8, 9 years, I approach again, and now they're going to make me do a new residency because they can't tell whether or not I completed the funeral director embalmer residency or whether I completed the funeral director only internship. So I'd have to start over. Well, let me tell you something. You can kiss my ass. Okay? And the way you can tell, unless you are illiterate, in which case, upload my document and ask Siri or Gemini, is, do I have the 2-year degree and do I have a combination license? And if the answer is yes, well, here's a hint, numbnuts. I have the dual degree. Well, New York, you lost me because I refused to jump through your damn hoops. And let me tell you what, I cry myself to sleep at night. I'm not bitter, right? I'm not bitter at all. But imagine if I'm frustrated, how many other people are being frustrated because apparently it's like, oh, you know what we're going to do today? Tastes like a 5-year requirement that doesn't exist on the piece of paper. It's dumb. It's dumb. Just like it's very, very dumb. DOOMB, dumb, that you only have 50 crematories in the entire state of New York. And you wonder why when you have an increase in your death rate that you're unable to maintain anything because you go into crisis mode because you literally don't have enough cremation retorts because you're so worried about cremation taking over and screwing funeral homes out of traditional funerals. Well, live by the sword, die by the sword, baby. You created your problem, now you live with it. And I don't see any more crematories opening up in New York. So should something like an epidemic happen again, y'all have fun figuring that part out. Emotional toll and burnout. So in case you ever wonder what Tiffany looks like, there she is. Make sure that if you do see her, she is now a celebrity. You get an autograph. You buy her merch, okay? That's the way it works. Speaking of, I need to start selling merch. I legit need to start selling merch. Funeral directing is meaningful but emotionally demanding work. We meet people at their lowest, helping them navigate loss while managing complex logistics. Research indicates that 28% of funeral workers meet the clinical threshold for PTSD. 28%? That's an awful conservative number. Or people are lying. A rate far above that of the general population. So even at 28%, I'm still saying that there's more. I would not bet that 28%'s it. For example, during my internship, I responded to 3 calls in one night. Oh, Boo Bear. Those are rookie numbers. Giving my full emotional energy to each family. By morning, I was exhausted in a way that no textbook could have prepared me for. Professor might have mentioned something about how exhausting the job is and how much it sucks. But yeah, textbook can't get you there. What's really funny, though, is when I tell people about stuff like that, they don't believe me. Okay, they don't believe me. I mean, I remember one night, I think I must have had 5 removals I had to do. So by the time I'm getting back, I might as well just shower, get in the car, and drive back to the funeral home and nap in my chair because the workday's starting over. And I'm going to be all there again. And hopefully that's not like my on-call night as a funeral director rather than just a removal guy. Being an intern killed me. Or being an apprentice, literally almost killed me. Thank God I was a hell of a lot younger. I could not do it now at my age. I would die. My heart would give out on me. Unfortunately, multiple calls in a single night was not a rare occurrence in my internship experience. Yeah, it's not. This cumulative emotional fatigue compounded by long hours and the unpredictability of death care is a major reason talented people leave the field. Absolutely. And I know she backs me on this 100%. People look at that as that's the price of entry. That can't continue. Mr. Reese used to tell me some of the stories about when he was apprentice and how he moved up. And I may share some of those in the future that he shared with me. But for the most part, those are private things. And I might wait until after he passes or something like that. Because I don't want to talk about the way things were and what he went through without him saying, hey, you know what, maybe you need to share that with the next generation. But fact of the matter is, in sum, if I was treated like dog shit, he was treated subhuman, right? And he mentions all these names of all these funeral home owners who own these funeral homes with these cranking numbers making all this money. Do you know how many were alive at the time he was having this conversation with me? 2. All those owners and managers were dead. They all died as alcoholics with cirrhosis of the liver, or they all died of heart attacks. Many didn't make it to age 60. They died in their 40s and 50s. Well, hint. The way you're doing it is not sustainable and it is not healthy. Plain and simple. Staffing shortages affect more than just scheduling. It impacts quality of care, staff well-being, and business sustainability. Without enough hands on deck, families may face delays and limited personalization. In rural areas where finding even one licensed funeral director is difficult, some communities have already lost local funeral homes altogether. The result, families must travel farther during an already painful time or wait longer to lay loved ones to rest. And also the fact that more families are more geographically diverse. So they are waiting regardless because they have to get people to come together. And this is why TIF rocks, because she offers solutions. Despite the urgency of the issue, I remain hopeful. Across the country, funeral professionals, educators, and associations are working on creative, forward-thinking solutions. Here are 5 strategies I believe can help bridge the gap. First, expand public awareness and career outreach. Absolutely. And not just like TikTok videos and people like, oh my God, that Sarah is so great. Right? It is something more than that. It's having honest conversations, people preparing for the future, and people realize just because you talk about death doesn't mean it's going to come knocking on your door. I joke about my death all the damn time. And here's the hint, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen, which is why I have directives in place. All those things are ready. Am I pre-needed? At this point, no, I'm not, and that's just because I'm a cheap bastard. But fact of the matter is, do I have an account set aside so if something happened tomorrow, at a minimum, I'm looking at a nice viewing followed by a cremation? Ideally, I want to go in the ground just to be annoying and upset people that are like, oh my God, I can't believe they're using all that formaldehyde and cement. Yeah, it's me. Of course they are. And since I'm a big boy, they're going to have to use double the stuff. Ha ha! Eat your tofu. Programs like Afterlife I am such a jerk, man. Oh my God. Anything to be the troll. Anything to be the troll. Few high school students grow up dreaming of funeral service careers, not from a lack of interest, but a lack of exposure, which is crazy to me that people don't want them in there looking and learning and participating, because that is an extremely important time for people to get engaged in the profession. We must do more to show that this work is about service, healing, and community. The Mortician's documentary didn't help with that. Programs like Afterlife Mortuary Services Summer Camp in Memphis, led by Madeline Lyons and Dana Taylor, introduced teens to the profession with hands-on experience such as observing embalming, understanding cremation, and learning what it takes to become a funeral director. Take note, folks. People can observe as long as you get permission from the family. Professor Finn's been saying that for years. Stop telling families, or stop telling people, oh no, we can't do that. That's against the law. Oh no, we can't do that. Families wouldn't want it. You don't damn know because you ain't damned asked. That's the truth. Stop being lazy. We are our worst own enemies. Since 2020, mortuary school enrollment has grown by 25%, with 72% graduates being women. Outreach efforts are working. We just need more of them. Modernize and standardize licensing. To remove unnecessary barriers, the industry must push for license reciprocity across states. Funeral director-only licensing tracks without embalming requirements already an option in some states. That's always a sore topic with me. That's always going to be a sore topic with me. You go to mortuary school, you learn to embalm. Accelerated pathways for candidates with related degrees, e.g. psychology, business, etc. Hey man, I got an accelerated pace and I had a degree in music, and I had no idea in the future that I was going to be even going into this field. I just had the smart idea to say, well, you know what? I'm going to take A and P as my sciences. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it satisfied my gen eds, and it set me up for success later because I didn't try to cop the easy way out. While I value high standards, a clearer, more unified approach to licensure would make it easier for professionals to relocate and respond to workforce needs, especially in underserved areas. Adopting something similar to the Nurse Licensing Compact. Damn it, been saying this for years. Get a compact that does this, which allows nurses with a license in a member state to practice in other NLC member states, of which there are 41, without needing a separate state license, should be considered. And the only reason why, Tiff, that is not happening is because each one of the states is protecting their own. Oh my God, if we just give all these people these other licenses, they're going to come in and wipe out our local population. Your local population is dead man walking already, bro. So if you got someone that wants to come into your state and practice and they're already licensed in another state, take the win. Like, come on, take the win. I can tell you one of the prohibitive things for me, not getting additional licenses, I don't want to deal with the damn CEU requirement, and I don't want to have to pay for 4 or 5 licensing fees every year or two when it comes time to renew my licenses. Coupled by the fact that some place that if you don't have your CEU certified by the right places, that means I have to do even more CEUs because the 12 I just took for Florida don't meet the CEUs in Oklahoma because the provider's not authorized. The hell, man. Like, it's more than just that, but we need to sit down and have that conversation, and a compact is absolutely the first good step for all of that. Now, my problem always with the funeral director only, and it will always be my problem, I don't view this as the price of admission. I don't view this as, well, if you can't embalm, you shouldn't be in there. No, we can create classes for people who are funeral director only so that they learn principles of embalming, maybe without the hands-on treatment, and can talk about it, which is the most important part. My beef is if the stuff is already out there, we have degrees that exist that do both. What do you put into a single purpose degree? How do you go from associate in science in funeral service ed or mortuary science, whatever you want to call it, to an associate in science in funeral directing and an associate in science in embalming? Because here's a hint, it's going to get harder. Right? You have to beef up the degree. You have to have minimum number of credits for a degree in order for the degree to be offered under the laws of the state. That is always going to be the issue. As past president of the American Board, the immediate past president, we've had this conversation with the National Funeral Directors Association. I am not opposed to creating this. The American Board is not opposed to creating this. The problem is you have a degree that does both. And why don't people want to do both? Well, I need them quick. They don't want to have to go back to school to do it all. Then I don't know what to tell you folks. Like, I really don't. That has been the process to become a funeral director. That is the minimum education for a century that we have said you need to have in order to be able to practice. And it covers both aspects. So if we're going to cut that out and we still have to offer a degree, then what do we beef up things with to make it happen? Now, there are certainly things that we can beef up the degree with. But you're still going to have to take, 60 credit hours to get that degree. And if you turn it only into a certificate, most states right now on their laws require some formal level of education at that 2-year to 4-year level. So you're right back in the same boat. This is also why we don't have compacts, because we can't agree on what the minimum we all agree that the minimum education has to be a 2, and there are some that kick it up to the next level and add the spice and say it has to be a 4-year degree. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. While I value high standards, a clear... Create support roles and build flexibility, right? The physician's assistant for funeral directors. Minnesota's Transfer Care Specialist Initiative trains non-licensed staff to manage death calls, transport decedents, and handle intake processes. In Florida, we just call that staff. So again, different states do things differently. Anyone can take a death call. Anyone can do the transfer. Licensed funeral directors don't have to go on. Thank God that licensed funeral directors do not have to go on removals in the state of Florida, because God almighty, that would destroy the industry. There's not enough people. This approach allows licensed funeral directors to concentrate on arrangements, clinical preparation, and ceremonies. Particularly effective in rural areas, this model enhances operational capacity while ensuring respectful and efficient initial responses. Other states where only licensed funeral directors are permitted to carry out transfers are currently exploring similar frameworks. This initiative resembles the most widely, this model widely, blah, blah. Dude, it is hard to speak when I've been literally talking since like noon, because I recorded all those extra microbiology videos right before this. In addition to working and whatnot, so I've been talking like nonstop since like 10 a.m. This initiative resembles the model widely used in the United Kingdom, where funeral homes employ trained funeral assistants to handle death calls, transfers, the intake process, and perform various tasks such as vehicle maintenance, driving, and bearing. In larger firms, these roles are typically full-time. However, smaller firms often outsource transfers to specialized companies, which I think is where we're going in the United States. That we're going to be going to a lot of transfer companies. The model is advantageous because it allows funeral directors to dedicate more time and attention to managing arrangements and ceremonies, reducing fatigue from busy nights on call, and helping to prevent burnout. Absolutely, because then the transfer company maintains the 24-hour staff, and they staff accordingly. In case some of you folks didn't catch it earlier, the General Counsel for the National Funeral Directors Association did a wonderful workshop on the FTC funeral rule, had an attorney from the Federal Trade Commission go in there and talk about things. And for those of you who said, Professor Finn doesn't know what he's talking about, removal services don't need to have general price lists. Don't listen to Professor Finn, listen to the attorney for the Federal Trade Commission. Just saying, it's recorded, it's out there. It was free. It was on the I think it's posted on the NFDA website. Feel free to go watch it. So I might not know what the hell I'm talking about, but the attorney that actually is the person that, comes after you, they probably do. Some larger firms are addressing gaps with traveling funeral directors, a pool of licensed professionals who rotate among locations, experiencing staff shortages due to illness, vacation, or volume spikes. And that's pretty much the model that we're seeing in most states, where funeral directors of firms are basically, hey, you're at this location one day, this location somewhere else. Billy called in sick. You're covering that if anyone walks in, and away you go. Again, a strong argument for setting appointment-based arrangements, which outreach, people need to know you can't just walk into a funeral home and meet with the funeral director. That is something that we have trained the population is a given. You try doing that with your general practice people, okay? Otherwise, you have to go to urgent care or you have to go to the emergency room. You don't just get to walk in and see your doctor. That is the exception, not the rule. But with funeral directors, that is the rule and not the exception. The floating model helps maintain consistent service levels and reduces pressure on small fixed teams. It is an efficient way to scale professionalism across wider geographic areas without hiring redundantly. Improve compensation, work-life balance, and invest in mental health support. According to the NFDA, most funeral professionals cite work-life balance as their top concern. Compensation remains a barrier too, with approximately 20% of newly licensed directors earning just $35,000 to $45,000 a year, despite years of education and training. This is what always pissed me off the most. Some firms are responding by offering better pay, housing stipends, signing bonuses, or relocation support. Dude, some of those hiring bonuses went up to like 10 grand. Some of them are absolutely phenomenal. Others are rethinking schedules, introducing more manageable rotating on-call shifts, guaranteed time off, and mental health days. These changes matter. I've seen colleagues choose not to stay because of a paycheck, but because they were finally given time to breathe. The old-school mentality of stoicism no longer serves us and hasn't for years. Thankfully, the industry is beginning to shift, largely because the industry is getting younger. Wellness programs, stress management workshops, access to grief counselors and therapy referrals, and peer support groups and staff check-ins. My hope is that this will become the industry norm rather than the exception. I think it's heading in that direction. I truly do. We need to normalize rest, nurture healthy emotional boundaries, and encourage asking for help. The caregivers must also be cared for. Fun fact that I know for a fact right now, there is a draft copy of a model apprentice/intern act that the American Board of Funeral Service Education is working on. And then we're going to present that to the National Funeral Directors Association and other associations to kind of serve as a model that hopefully that starts bringing all that kind of in, which will help lead to something like a compact. Leverage technology for efficiency. Technology cannot replace human empathy. Don't tell Elon Musk that. But it can help streamline the rest. Having led a project in which I collaborated with a team of software engineers to customize and implement funeral management software, including staff training, I witnessed firsthand how these systems can significantly reduce administrative burdens, expedite paperwork, enhance internal communication, and minimize errors. With careful implementation and a focus on user-friendly design for funeral directors, technology can alleviate the workload by enhancing daily operational efficiency. Rather than replacing the core of the profession, it serves to protect and support it. AI is going to absolutely wreck all that, man. AI is going to take away so much stuff if it's done right. And, you know, I trash Elon the trash Elon because it's fun and, you know, it's basically acceptable by society. But his little Tesla robot that he's working on, that humanoid one, I'm telling you, no uncertain terms, I'm buying one when it comes out because absolutely have to have that as a toy. But two, don't think for a second that won't change the world when it comes to what we do as funeral directors, lifting the heavy weights, moving things back and forth. Imagine if you don't have to, you know, get caskets ready, move them into rooms or something, the robot does it for you. Just saying, that frees up a lot of time to do some of those menial tasks. Vision for the future. In this pivotal moment for the funeral profession, we have an urgent opportunity to safeguard our future as we embrace the challenge of maintaining a compassionate workforce. Let's remember the profound impact we have on those experiencing loss. By investing in our people, dismantling barriers, and igniting passion among young, aspiring funeral directors, we can transform our industry. Let's come together to ensure a strong foundation for the next generation, one where dedicated professionals are equipped to provide the care and comfort our communities need. After all, When the time comes for each of us to face loss, we deserve to have someone by our side who is not only ready, but also deeply supported and engaged. Together, let's ensure that we are the guiding presence now and in the future. And for all you haters, there's all the references. There we go. So let me go over to the chat here. I'm working on my license in another state as we speak. Yeah, no, it sucks. It sucks. And I'm toying with some ideas about joining maybe some of these state associations where I have schools and whatnot, and being active with them in a more formal manner. And the largest barrier is, dude, I just don't want to get extra licenses to get extra licenses. So for example, I cannot be a member of the Texas Funeral Directors Association because I'm not a Texas funeral director. Well, do I want to get a license so I can sit on committees and do work and stuff like that? That's going to be a question I got to answer at some point. And the truth is, I probably will get a Texas license because if I recall, when I was doing my continuing ed for my Florida license, my provider is certified for Texas. But my problem is I'm going to complete that class, but Texas has an in-face component. So now I have to do 6 to 8 hours, whatever it is, physically in front of someone, which means, hey, if I go to the TFDA or Dallas Funeral Directors Association meetings, I'm going to get that time there. Like, I get it. But it's the inconvenience of having to do 6 hours more to the course of study I'm already doing. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I agree with some of the theory embalming or at the bare minimum some deceit and care training. Yeah, like I'm not opposed to the single purpose degrees. I just don't like the idea that if you have a tool that does 2 things already, why do you need a tool that only does one? It's kind of like the Genesis injectors, right? A Genesis injector is a extremely convenient and safe way to inject cavity fluid, but it can't aspirate. So you're paying 160 something, whatever it is now, for a Genesis injector, and you still have to pay $78+ for a trocar because you have to be able to aspirate. Or do you just pay the $78 and you get that? So again, happy to be part of the conversation about that. But I don't think the issue is largely going to be solved by a single purpose licensing solution. I just don't think that at all. I think the overwhelming majority of people that are looking at that are doing it for the sole purpose, the sole purpose of having a cheap workforce. Period. That is the only thing it solves. Oh, I got this good person that wants to be, but they don't want to have to go through the sciences and learn embalming. Okay. So what happens when you need an embalmer finally? Man, we shouldn't have to send people to mortuary school to learn embalming at this point. We're just learning them at the funeral home because we see that happening in Georgia. Georgia was doing that. Let's just do an apprenticeship program. They come here, we teach them what we need, we turn them into fluid pushers because, we don't know what the hell is going on. We can't teach the stuff. But as long as they can spend 2 years for us, let's go ahead and use them and let's pay them $35,000 a year. That's a strong argument. If they don't have to be college grads and we can just do whatever, do they need to be making a living wage? This is a very complex situation. There needs to have some really honest discussion as to what are the barriers of getting people into the industry, the actual barriers, and once the people are in, how do we keep the ones that are there? And here's a hint. If they're willing to take the board exam and all that, and you lose them later, that wasn't the barrier. That's insane. Yeah, I mean, like, that's the other fun part. There is so much that needs to change that sometimes people don't know where to start, and it's very simple. I had a conversation with one of my employees, I think yesterday it was, and it was like, dude, if you try to focus on all the fires, you're going to lose your mind. So instead, focus on the one that's right in front of you, put that one out, and then move on to the next one, and that's how you finally solve it. It's the only way that I can stay sane. There's lots of problems I have to deal with, and sometimes I have to focus on the problem that's right in front of me and say, this is the one I'm taking care of now. When that one's done, I'll go to the next one. And then I'll just continue to triage until I get, and I look up and most of the fires are out. So, I just realized that I didn't bother sharing this. So, I feel like an idiot having read through this and whatever. So, for those of you who didn't have the article in front, Tiffany's a licensed funeral director and embalmer based in Minnesota with over a decade of experience in funeral care. Tiffany began her career in the United Kingdom, where she served as a funeral director for 8 years. She completed her internship at Anderson Funeral Home and Crematory in Alexandria, Minnesota, after graduating from the funeral service program at Miami-Dade College in Florida. Shout out to my old employer. In addition to her funeral service qualifications, Tiffany holds a bachelor's degree in accounting. We won't hold that against her. Her diverse background reflects a deep commitment to providing compassionate care and support to families during their most challenging times, alongside a passion for the overall development and advancement of the funeral industry. And I'll tell you, it was cool having her as a student because, I had people from the Caribbean islands and whatnot, but no one from mainland Europe, essentially, no one from the UK or Ireland or any places like that. So being able to share stories of how things were done. But look at that, 8 years of experience. She has to come over. She has to start from scratch, which I get, foreign countries, that's kind of the price of admission, cost of doing business, which in the Model Act that we are proposing at the American board that we are hopefully, I know there's language in there that addresses something like that. I'm just saying. How it finally ends will likely be something different, but I know that is in there. A lot needs to change, man. A lot needs to change. It's cool that we have people like Tiff out there that are wanting to make those changes. And man, stay stoked. That's all I can really say is just stay stoked, because we have to have people like you in the industry. The old fogies like me, man, we're getting bitter and get off my lawn and stuff because, oof. One thing really cool. The NFDA has elected its new leaders. Dan Ford is going to serve as the 25-26 NFDA president. Here are the individuals that were elected to serve on the board of directors. Chrissy Christian of Rogersville, Tennessee. Steve Spann of John A. Gupton College, a colleague of mine at the American board. Wonderful, wonderful guy. This is really exciting. Secretary Ellen Wynn McBrayer of Georgia. And the great thing about this is if Ellen continues through the chairs, if everything happens the way it's supposed to, Ellen will be the first female president in the history of the National Funeral Directors Association. So that's just awesome, man. That's just awesome. I saw that kind of pop in on Facebook last night. Was really proud to see that. I don't know Ellen personally. I know her in passing. I'd recognize her face if she walked by me. But the fact that, she's kicking ass, taking names and numbers, perfect, man. Hard for people to deny the way the industry is headed when that's going on. So, folks, hey, it is now 8:40. This was a long one. Once again, if you haven't already, like, share, subscribe to the channel, share this stuff with a friend. Feel free to, write me an email back. Let me know what you thought. Drop something in the comments. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what you'd like to see going forward. I am trying to make it a priority that every month I will stream third Friday of every month. I'm going to commit to that. If I am traveling, I'll see how I can do that if I travel. But this is something that I want to try to do for the remainder of 2025 is stick to that commitment. So everyone, thanks for hanging out. This is Professor Finn signing off. Don't forget that we have those new microbiology videos up, and I'll start on a new batch in the next couple of weeks. I will see you next live stream. Peace out all. We'll see you next time.